A memory surfaces of a happier time. Hinami recalls how she and her younger sister, Hana, were as close as twins. They would share everything, even taking bites of each other's ice cream. As Hana happily eats, Hinami's thoughts drift into a desperate prayer. If her sister cannot be saved, she is willing to give her all. It is for this reason she pleads with God to save Hana. Her prayer echoes, juxtaposing a fantastical image of her beside a divine being with the grim reality of Hana lying motionless in a hospital bed. The plea is simple and direct. Save her, please. God. The memory fades, snapping back to a frantic moment. Hinami runs full tilt towards the hospital, her face a mask of panic. She spots her parents sitting slumped on a bench outside and calls out to them before screaming her sister's name, Hinami. Inside, she demands to know where Hana is. Her mother urges her to be quiet, explaining that Hana is in the middle of an operation. The doctor's words hang heavy in the air. They were told to be prepared for anything. This all happened 4 years ago, when Hana was suffering from an unknown disease. Hinami can only whisper a devastated, no. She remembers the cruelty of that time, watching her little sister, not even 10 years old, connected to machines, and looking like she was in so much pain. Hinami felt powerless, able only to watch. The memory shifts to her standing alone on a balcony, gripped by the terrifying thought that she might never play with Hana again. As tears begin to fall, her sorrow transforms into a steely resolve. She will not accept this fate. No, she whispers to herself, her expression hardening. Her newfound resolve crumbles into pure desperation. She collapses to her knees, begging for any possible way to save her sister. Her pleas are directed upward, a raw cry to the heavens. Please, God, I beg you, save my sister, Hana. A voice answers her prayer, calm and clear. Okay, let me grant you your wish. Hinami looks up, startled, wondering if she's hallucinating. The voice continues, stating that there is something required in return, herself. The shock gives way to a dawning realization. This is something she can do to save her sister. Clinging to this impossible hope, she clasps her hands together and shouts with all her might, making her bargain clear. Please save Hana. I don't care what happens to me. A connection is established. A hand gently wipes a tear from her eye as the sharp, smiling face of the divine being comes into view, sealing their pact. The divine being's voice echoed through the sudden darkness, welcoming Hinami. She was struck by a powerful force, leaving her completely disoriented. As her vision cleared, she found herself in a strange, dark space, looking up at the being who had answered her prayer. She watched, startled, as he floated down amidst a cascade of flowers, introducing himself simply as God. He expressed his gratitude that she had come to him, and Hinami realized with a jolt that this was the same voice she had heard before. He assured her that he would cure her sister. In an instant, a vision appeared. The being stood at Hana's bedside, placing a hand on her head. The illness vanished miraculously. Overcome with relief and gratitude, Hinami thanked him as she saw her sister resting peacefully, just as the being's image faded away. The vision of her healed sister faded, returning Hinami to the void. The divine being then reminded her that, in return for saving Hana, she must now fulfill her side of the pact. He snapped his fingers with a cheerful grin, declaring that from that moment on, Hinami would be his plaything. The word left her utterly stunned and confused. She struggled to comprehend his meaning. He elaborated with a pleasant smile that, as his plaything, she would be sent to a world entirely different from Earth. He continued, comparing this new world to the video games she and Hana used to play. Her objective, however, would not be mere survival. She would also be required to collect points. She asked why God would possibly need points. He explained that in this alternate world, all her actions and behaviors would be evaluated. In exchange for his support, he wanted her to accumulate these points for him, a prospect he seemed to find highly amusing. He leaned in close, pressing a finger to his own lips to signal that the reason was a secret. Before she could question him further, he gently touched her lips, silencing her with a mysterious smile. He then announced their immediate departure to the new world. The suddenness of it all sent Hinami into a panic, the fear of death gripping her. Her terrified reaction only amused him more. As a powerful energy began to swirl around her, he offered to explain the concept of statuses. She feels a smooth touch as Reze takes her hand, explaining that her status will display her abilities as numbers. A translucent screen materializes, showing her attributes, HP, MP, attack, and others, which he notes are all below average for now. As she processes this, he pats her head, declaring the transfer a success. Confused, she tugs at her now oversized clothes. Her body feeling lighter, she summons her own status screen. Her attributes have all increased, but she is shocked to see her age listed as 15. Reze reassures her, explaining that he converted her knowledge and experience from ages 16 to 21 into her status. Nothing has been lost. She questions the skill listed as Reze's God's Blessing. He confirms with a smile that is indeed from him, proof that he will always be watching over her. Noting the time, he announces her departure, promising to explain more once she arrives. A wave of fear washes over her as she swallows hard, wondering what kind of world awaits. Despite her fear, A gentle smile forms on her lips. At last, she thinks she was able to do something for Hannah. As Reze calls out her name, she is suddenly pulled backward, away from him. He catches her, pulling her into a final embrace. As he holds her, he gently kisses her forehead and reassures her that everything will be all right. The force pulls her away again, her form dissolving into particles of light. Reze watches her disappear, confident that she will be fine. With a warm smile, he wishes her good luck and prays for her happiness. As she drifts through the void, a memory surfaces, Hannah's voice, asking if they can always be together. Reze's own prayer for Hannah's recovery echoes in her mind. She rests peacefully, surrounded by leaves and the sound of chirping birds. Her eyes snap open. She sits up abruptly, finding herself in a verdant, unfamiliar clearing before a whimsical, ornate structure. Her formal clothes are gone, replaced by a simple t-shirt and shorts. This place is, she wonders aloud. The surreal scene feels like a dream. As she takes in her surroundings, her gaze falls upon a letter lying on the ground. It is from God. The reality of her situation sinks in. She is in a different world. Unfolding the letter, she reads Reze's words. He confirms she has arrived safely and will now continue his explanation. The building before her is one of her new skills, God's miniature garden. He explains that it is a sanctuary, as the many demons outside cannot enter. The mention of demons sends a jolt of shock through her. She found herself before a structure that looked as if it were pulled from a storybook. A voice, that of the god Reze, explained that this was her new home, designed specifically with her preferences in mind. Overwhelmed, Hinami could only marvel at the sight, expressing how much she loved it. His voice then guided her attention to a book on a shelf by the bed, titled Diary Exchange. He instructed her to write in it daily about anything that happened, allowing her to seek his advice. He promised to explain the associated point system later, and she nodded in determined understanding. Clutching the diary to her chest, she listened as he offered his final words of comfort. He vowed to always protect and watch over her, urging her to call for him if she ever needed anything. Reassured, she squeezed the book and told herself that everything would be okay. The tour continued verbally, with Reze pointing out the kitchen, bathroom, and even fields for growing vegetables. As she sat on the bed, reading his letter, Hinami felt a surge of confidence, realizing that her experience with housework in her old world would serve her well here. Filled with this newfound resolve, she strode to the window and threw open the shutters, declaring to the unseen world that from this day forward, she would try her very best. Her view opened onto a town square, bustling with people. It was a world where many faced great hardships. Among the crowd, a young man with light, shaggy hair stood calmly, holding a small, white, rabbit-like creature in his arms. The sight of the world beyond was interrupted by a familiar pang of hunger. Her stomach grumbled, reminding her of her first priority, food. She soon sat down to a meal of 3 tomatoes harvested from her garden, noticing with some surprise that her Hinami points were currently at 0. As the morning sun filters into her room, Hinami dozes peacefully. Her thoughts drift back to the pact she made. To save her little sister, she, Kusugi Hinami, agreed to be reincarnated into this new world and collect points for the god who granted her wish. Now fully awake, she opens a diary. It has been a month since her arrival, and every morning, her first task is to exchange entries with God. She sees that he has already replied. After checking the diary, she has her lunch. She considers making donuts, having used a lot of sugar recently. Her thoughts turn to a recent, casual exchange where she mentioned eating buttered toast, and God simply noted that Hinami likes butter. Even though he encouraged her to seek his advice, she finds these small, personal observations a little troubling. With a huff of determination, she presents a large pot, ready to begin her work. She needs to earn points, and this is how she'll do it. She takes a deep breath. There are many ways to collect points, from exchanging diary entries to subjugating demons. One of them involves preparing a pot of medicinal herbs with plenty of water. She admits to herself that she's become quite addicted to making potions. Invoking her skill, Angel's singing voice, which accelerates the compounding process, she chants Sanctuary. The heart-shaped bottle glows intensely as a high potion materializes within. She examines the finished potion. This world's system, where things change with a simple chant, feels like a fantasy game. Sanctuary is one of many skills she possesses, something God had conveniently told her about in the diary. With her ingredients all used up, the bowl is now empty. Her skill has another use. Standing in her garden, she chants Sanctuary once more. This ability also allows her to accelerate the growth of medicinal herbs, and instantly, plants sprout from the soil all around her. Looking down at her harvest, she marvels at how the herbs look like flowers. Growing herbs, brewing potions, and collecting them. It's an incredibly convenient skill. She encourages the stamina and mana herbs to grow, and they flourish in abundance. A sudden commotion from beyond the fence startles her. She spots a young man with a sword and wonders what a human is doing out there. Her question is answered when 2 massive, snarling wolves burst into view. A cold dread washes over her as she realizes what those creatures must be. She reflects on her new life, feeling settled but also lonely after a month without speaking to anyone. Her only minor concern is running out of space to store her potions. Suddenly, a scream from outside shatters the quiet, causing her to stumble in shock. Her gaze snaps toward the source of the sound, where she sees the young man and a companion being attacked by what look like demons. A wave of fear washes over her as she wonders what she should do. Despite her terror, she hesitates, her eyes wide with alarm as she watches the man struggle against the beasts. In a sudden burst of resolve, she grabs a bowl filled with prepared herbs and rushes out the door. She calls out to the embattled pair, urging them to hurry towards her. The young man looks up, surprised, as she dashes into the fray while the wolves growl menacingly. Reaching them, she pulls the young man toward the relative safety of her garden fence as the monstrous wolves close in from all sides. As a wolf lunges, the young man shuts his eyes tight, crying out in sheer terror for God to save him. In that critical moment, Hinami invokes a power, chanting the words Light Rhapsody. A brilliant magical sigil erupts from the ground around her, bathing the entire area in a blinding glow. When the light subsides, the wolves are gone. The two strangers sit on the ground, stunned and confused by what just occurred. Hinami quickly runs back inside her house. A short while later, the young woman formally thanks her for the rescue. With the immediate danger past, the young woman introduces herself as Cynthia Meridite and her companion as her escort, Karuto. Karuto then asks for Hinami's name, remarking that she is cute, which brings a pleased smile to her face. Her guests, seated comfortably in her home, expressed their amazement at her abilities. Cynthia, in particular, was curious about the skill she had used, asking what exactly Light Rhapsody was. Hinami, however, demurred, suggesting it wasn't anything special. As she pondered the voice she'd heard earlier, God's voice, she made a mental note to investigate her skills later, suspecting she might have more than one. Meanwhile, Cynthia took a sip of the drink Hinami had served, remarking on its interesting taste. Noticing Hinami's distracted silence, Karuto asked if she was all right. In response, Hinami explained that the beverage was a mana potion she had created. She admitted her own surprise that it had the taste of black tea. Upon hearing this revelation, Karuto looked at her intently and asked a direct question. Was she an alchemist? Her confusion was palpable. She didn't seem to even understand the term. Seeing this, Cynthia gently clarified that an alchemist is simply someone who brews potions, a craft that anyone of any age can practice if they know the methods. He took a sip, and his eyes widened in astonishment. He declared that it was truly delicious. Hinami explained that potions are usually foul-tasting, and this was the first time she had ever encountered one that was so pleasant. His surprise was evident. It seemed incredible to him that a person with such a clear aptitude for alchemy would be living in the Lost Forest. When Hinami questioned the name, Karuto asked if she was truly unaware of where she lived. She simply nodded. He went on to explain that the area was called the Lost Forest because its layout had suddenly become maze-like and confusing. Furthermore, it was now home to numerous powerful demons, causing even seasoned adventurers to avoid it entirely. The realization dawned on Hinami. She had been living in an incredibly dangerous place without knowing it. Hearing this, Cynthia offered a reassuring smile, telling her not to worry and that the forest would likely return to normal sooner or later. She explained that she and Karuto had been training nearby when they were chased by demons and ended up there. Karuto, looking resolute, added that this meant they would just have to work harder. Hinami then voiced a practical question. How did the two of them plan to get out of the forest? Cynthia began to reply that it wasn't a problem, but she was cut off by a deep rumbling sound from outside. A massive, winged creature descended from the sky with a powerful flap of its wings, and Cynthia cried out for her big brother. From the back of the great beast, a young man dismounted. With a graceful flourish, he introduced himself as Alfredo Merudite, Cynthia's brother, and formally thanked Hinami for saving his little sister. The sight of his elegant clothes and refined bearing sent a jolt through Hinami. She was sensing, for the first time, the unmistakable aura of nobility. She and her companions could only stare, dumbfounded. Before them was a real, living dragon, its presence both awesome and overwhelming. The rider dismounted, revealing himself to be Alfredo. He apologized to his sister, Cynthia, for taking so long to pick them up. She assured him it was no problem, expressing more surprise that he found a house in such a dangerous place. His gaze then shifted to a nearby patch of plants, and he questioned why medicinal herbs were growing in a flower bed. Turning to Hinami, he was surprised when she confirmed that she, an alchemist, was nurturing them. The nobleman's calm demeanor shattered. He stared at her, utterly shocked, repeating her claim aloud. She was cultivating medicinal herbs here? His intense reaction left Hinami confused, wondering if she had done something wrong. From off-panel, Alfredo's voice declared with disbelief that cultivating medicinal herbs was simply impossible. He leaped forward, agitated, explaining that according to all known texts, such herbs only grow in specific wild conditions. Even the royal palace's alchemists couldn't succeed in cultivating them. He demanded to know what kind of person Hinami was, prompting her to think it best not to mention her sanctuary. Seeing Hinami's unease, Cynthia intervened, asking her brother to stop troubling her. She apologized for his intensity, though Hinami quickly insisted she wasn't worried. Regaining his composure, Alfredo extended a formal invitation. As a show of gratitude for her earlier help, he asked if she would honor them with a visit to their estate. Cynthia and Ikuru looked on approvingly. Cynthia confirmed their destination, asking Hinami if she was all right with them all heading to town. The idea filled Hinami with pure elation. Clasping her hands, she pleaded for them to take her along. It would be her first time ever visiting a town, and she was desperate to learn more about this world. She beams, realizing this is the place God has given her to belong. With a happy declaration that she will quickly pack, she dashes off, leaving a bewildered Cynthia and Ikuru in her wake as Alfredo chuckles. Once she is ready, the group stands outside. Cynthia remarks that Hinami is quite an interesting person and that she never gets tired of watching her. Alfredo then asks if everyone is prepared to leave. With a sudden jolt, they are all seated atop a massive, winged creature. Hinami realizes this is her first time seeing a demon and is surprised by how high up they are. Alfredo, seated at the front, tells everyone to hold on tight, assuring them they will reach their destination within an hour. At his command, the beast lets out a low growl as it prepares to depart. The dragon leaps into the air with a powerful thrust. Hinami holds on, a look of pure shock on her face as she processes the incredible reality. She is flying on dragon. As they soar through the sky, she reflects that for the first time in this world, she has met other people. Noticing her expression, Cynthia leans over and asks with concern if she is all right. Her attention is suddenly captured by something on the horizon. Her eyes widen in pure wonder as she exclaims that they can finally see it. Beside her, Cynthia nervously notes just how high up they are. The view opens up to reveal a sprawling town below, the first Hinami has ever seen. As their mount circles above the rooftops, a person on the street below looks up, recognizing the rider as Lord Alfredo. Down in the bustling town square, the word spreads. Onlookers murmur amongst themselves, confirming that it is indeed Lord Alfredo, speculating that he must have just finished subjugating demons in the forest. Amidst the crowd's chatter, a different scene unfolds. A guard gruffly orders a prisoner, whose hands are bound in rattling iron shackles, to walk faster. Amidst the bustling town, Ikuru suddenly stops in his tracks. He stands silently on the stone street, his gaze distant. A companion with feline ears waits beside him as a belated thought surfaces in his mind. He believes he is suffering from dragon motion sickness. Hinami arrives at a grand, sprawling estate, greeted by a formal reception line of staff. Lord Alfredo and Lady Cynthia stand at the forefront, welcoming her. Overwhelmed by the scale of the place, she can only think that she has stumbled into somewhere truly outrageous. Still in a daze from the welcome, she finds herself seated at a long, ornate table inside. She learns that Alfredo and Cynthia's parents are away on an outing, a fact that surprises her as she had assumed they were out subjugating demons. As they talk, Cynthia explains that their father is both a knight and an adventurer, while their mother acts as a support mage. She adds that her brother, Alfredo, is also a very strong adventurer. Hinami is visibly impressed, her imagination conjuring images of powerful warriors. He then speaks, revealing that the House of Merodite has produced many earls over generations, and that his father's generation took on the role of adventurers. As the successor, Alfredo declares his intent to prove his worth by defeating the demon lord. The gravity of his words catches Hinami off guard. Following this declaration, Alfredo turns to Hinami with a direct and startling proposal. He asks her to be his one and only exclusive alchemist, claiming he felt it was destiny from their first meeting. The suddenness of the offer makes Cynthia cough in shock. She panics, the request feeling far too much like a marriage proposal. Alfredo presses his case, his expression shining with conviction as he insists that with her help, defeating the demon lord feels possible. He pleads for her to join him. In response to his intensity, Hinami apologizes, explaining that she cannot be forced into such an arrangement. She then slams a large pot onto the table, revealing it's full of recovery potions she brought from home. He chuckles softly at her reaction. Alfredo graciously accepts her decision, saying that while she can't be his exclusive alchemist, he would be grateful for any help she can offer within her power. He thanked her sincerely. As he speaks of using the potions well, a flustered Hinami clarifies that she can't simply give them away. Feeling a pang of guilt, she asks if he would be willing to purchase them instead. The concept of a purchase triggers a profound realization. To purchase means money, which means currency exists here. Of course it does. And that means that all this time, she has been operating without any. She is stunned by the realization of her financial situation. Cynthia, seeing her distress, offers her a pouch of coins. Cynthia, flustered but insistent, explains that she personally tested the recovery potion's effects. Because of its quality, she declares she will purchase it for well over the standard market price, thrusting a heavy bag of coins towards Hinami. Overwhelmed by the generosity, Hinami expresses her profound gratitude as her visit to the Grand Merodite estate comes to a close. As she prepares to depart, Hinami apologizes for staying so long, though her hosts insist it was a pleasure. Alfredo offers to have her escorted home, but she politely declines, Cynthia then asks hopefully if it would be all right for her to come and see Hinami again. Her eyes widen with delight at the prospect. With a hopeful smile, she clarifies if Cynthia means as a friend. She joyfully agrees, her heart filled with warmth at the thought of her new connections. For a moment, she reflects on how glad she is to have met them all. 10 minutes later, however, that warmth evaporates into sudden panic. Standing alone on a cobblestone street, a stark realization hits her. She has absolutely no idea which way leads back to her house. Her mind races in a panic. She wonders what to do, knowing she can't possibly go back and trouble Alfredo and the others. At this rate, she'll never get home. A memory surfaces. Hannah had mentioned that if she ever had trouble, she should go to a guild. Spotting a large, official-looking building, she hurries inside. At the counter, a receptionist with cat-like ears informs her that to pass through the southern gate towards the Lost Forest, she must register with the guild and get an ID. Relieved to have a clear path forward, she eagerly agrees. The receptionist instructs her to place her hand on a device. After a flash of light, the receptionist chuckles and presents her with her newly created guild card, which she accepts with a flustered blush. She accepted the newly issued guild card, her mind jumping with excitement. With this, she could finally go home. The guild official explained that her rank could be increased based on her level of contribution, urging her to do her best. However, a sudden thought of demons in the forest tempered her enthusiasm. Approaching a receptionist with feline features, she voiced this concern, asking if it was possible to request an escort to enter the Lost Forest. She admitted she was worried about going alone, and the receptionist confirmed her fears, noting that the forest was indeed quite dangerous. The receptionist suggested two sensible options: recruiting party members or buying cursed slaves. The latter suggestion caught Hinami completely off guard. Stuttering, she asked what exactly a cursed slave was, as the receptionist gestured vaguely toward the main hall. Following her gaze, Hinami saw a group of adventurers walking by. The receptionist explained that most adventurers were, in fact, cursed slaves. The group appeared cheerful and at ease, which confused Hinami, as the word slave carried a deeply negative weight for her. She watched them go, surprised by how freely they interacted with one another. The contradiction was jarring, and she pressed the receptionist again for the meaning of cursed. The receptionist clarified that the term was meant literally. As proof of their status, each cursed slave has a crest engraved upon their chest. She then recounted an old legend explaining their origin. Long ago, an ancestor of the cursed slaves betrayed the country's goddess, Lettuce Reel. The curse they bear is said to be a trail of sadness left behind by the goddess as a result of that betrayal. Hinami listened, her expression filled with doubt. The mention of a goddess was surprising, but she reasoned that it was just a legend, with no real proof of its authenticity. The receptionist corrected her, explaining that the curse was not eternal. To be freed, a cursed slave must dedicate themselves to a master for 5 years. Because of this, many people enter into contracts with them, viewing it as a way to help them earn their freedom. This new information sparked a realization in Hinami. She understood now. While the concept of slavery was ludicrous in her old world, she could reframe this as helping them, an act that would lessen her own guilt. With her mind made up, she thanked the receptionist and declared she would go take a look. She walks with a new sense of purpose, a single thought solidifying in her mind. What if she is truly able to save someone? Her path leads her to an archway marking the entrance to the slave market, the low chatter of a crowd drifting from beyond it. The sight that greets her is grim. The cursed slaves are gathered in the open, their expressions vacant. The atmosphere is so heavy with despair that she finds it too painful to meet their eyes, wondering what she should do. Overwhelmed by the feeling, she decides to take a break and come back later, turning to leave the immediate area. But as she turns, her gaze is caught by a solitary figure. A young man sits apart from the others, a quiet and somber air about him that completely captures her attention. A nearby merchant notices her interest and approaches, confirming she's in the right place to find an escort for the Lost Forest. He identifies the young man as Ikuru, a very strong staff user, but cautions that there's a problem. His left eye is blind. Hinami is left wondering why she feels so captivated by him. The man speculates that the blindness might be the result of some kind of disease. Hearing this, a firm resolve forms in her mind. She decides then and there that she should try to cure him. The merchant, perhaps sensing her intent, seems surprised and suggests she look at the other options, stating that Ikuru's eyesight cannot be healed. For Hinami, however, his condition reminds her painfully of Hannah's own illness. As if feeling her stare, Ikuru looks up, his hand trembling as he covers his face. He quietly reveals that his right eye will soon be lost as well. His name escapes her lips in a whisper as his pained expression is reflected in her wide, compassionate eyes. She looks upon the boy with deep empathy, reflecting on how painful it must be to slowly lose one's sight. With her decision made, she extends a hand toward him, asking if he would be all right with coming with her. Ikuru looks up, momentarily speechless at the unexpected offer. He reaches out to accept her offer, but as he does, a brilliant light emanates from Hinami, startling him. Their hands meet, and in that instant, intricate, flower-like patterns materialize on their skin, sealing their new bond. Later, the slave merchant examines the mark on Hinami's hand with wide-eyed surprise, remarking that he has never seen such an elegant cursed slave crest. Hinami, equally taken aback, realizes the pattern is a garland. He explains that the mark is a symbol of the contract formed between a master and a cursed slave. Normally, the crest is just a simple line, or perhaps wavy if one is lucky. Hers, however, is far more definite and ornate. Afterward, standing with the crew, Hinami admits that she cannot explain it in words, but she feels their meeting must be fate. As she gazes at him, a stunning realization washes over her. This boy, she thinks with certainty, is God. Later that evening, in a quiet room accompanied by two small, rabbit-like creatures, she closes a book with a soft sigh, pondering who exactly he could be. Meanwhile, in another place, the god Reze addresses one of the rabbit creatures as it strikes a triumphant pose. He asks if it wants to visit Hinami, then muses that since she is a girl, it should be all right. He chuckles to himself, a knowing smirk playing on his lips as he gazes into a starry void. With a sense of anticipation, he murmurs, "Now, then." His attention shifts to a divine chamber where a woman with impossibly long, shimmering hair lies resting. He addresses her directly, his voice echoing in the space. "You did quite a cruel thing there. Right, let us reel." An intense silence hangs between Ikuru and Hinami as they sit opposite one another in the back of a wagon. Ikuru's expression is fraught with distress, while Hinami stares back, her eyes wide with shock. As their journey continues, Hinami calls out to him, starting to say "Master" before correcting herself to use her own name. They're on their way to the Lost Forest. He explains that he cannot bring himself to call her by name so casually. As a cursed slave, he insists it is impossible, no matter how many times she asks. Hinami seems puzzled, wondering if he understands how cursed slaves are typically treated. She simply wants them to get along, but he remains firm in his refusal. She clarifies her position, stating that cursed slaves exist only to follow orders and are forced into labor just to survive. She does not want that kind of relationship with him. Reminding him of the clothes and weapons she gave him at the marketplace, she asks plainly if he doesn't want them to be equals. Ikuru looks away, conflicted. He sighs, finally conceding a point. Since she gave him an order, he will stop using formal language with her. Hinami accepts this with a small smile, considering it progress. As the wagon rattles on, she silently hopes that one day, he will truly open his heart. Their journey brings them to the gloomy entrance of the Lost Forest. Hinami cheerfully suggests they move forward, but Ikuru stops her, pulling on her sleeve. He questions if she even knows the way to her supposed house. She admits she is relying on intuition, a fact that makes Ikuru certain they will get lost. She reassures him that it's close, but as they venture deeper, Ikuru suddenly halts. He senses something nearby and quickly raises a hand to silence Hinami, who jumps in surprise. From the rustling foliage, a large, wolf-like beast emerges with a low growl. Its eyes glow menacingly in the dim light. Hinami gasps, recognizing the creature for what it is, a demon. Without hesitation, he steps between Hinami and the snarling demon. He tells his master to wait where she is, assuring her that everything will be all right. The beast lunges, its fangs bared. In a fluid motion, Ikuru drops into a low stance, drawing two short blades as he prepares to meet the attack head-on. He moves with blinding speed, his staff ablur. A sharp screech echoes as he strikes the demon wolf, felling the beast in a single, powerful blow. The creature thuds to the ground, defeated, as Ikuru comes to a stop, his back to a stunned Hinami. She stares, utterly bewildered by the display. "Just one hit," she exclaims, asking how he managed such a feat and if he had always possessed such power. He turns to her, looking slightly uncertain how to respond. He explains that he used something called detection magic. Because his vision is poor when using wind magic, he relies on this other skill to compensate. Her eyes sparkle with excitement as the realization dawns on her. "Magic," she cries out, declaring his ability to be incredible. Flustered by her praise, he insists that anyone could do it, dismissing it as merely the ability to sense things. As he speaks, Hinami suddenly holds up a hand, her expression serious. She tells him to wait, sensing something nearby. Immediately on guard, Ikuru instructs her to stay put as the sound of rustling grows louder, whatever is closing in fast. From the dense foliage, a small, white head with long ears pokes out, revealing the source of the noise. The creature emerges fully, revealing itself to be a rabbit. Ikuru identifies it as a snow rabbit, a rarely seen and quite rare creature. To their surprise, the small animal approaches Hinami and begins to nuzzle against her affectionately. She wonders aloud if it's possible to pet it. Ikuru explains that touching one is highly unlikely, as they are sensitive creatures that seldom show themselves to people. Defying all expectation, the snow rabbit leaps directly into her arms. Hinami is overcome with delight, exclaiming how incredibly adorable it is as she feels its soft, cool fur. Ikuru watches in disbelief, noting that he has never heard a snow rabbit being so forward with a human. She decides to give the creature a name, asking if it would like to join them on their journey. Inspired by its white, marshmallow-like feel, she names it Maro. Turning to Ikuru, She offers him a chance to hold the squishy new companion. She watched as the snow rabbit, Maro, nuzzled against Ikuru. She remarked that the creature was cool, and for a moment, she thought Ikuru looked happy. Deciding it was time to move on before nightfall, she asked him where his house was. Before he could answer, a brilliant light suddenly flared around them. Startled, Hinami cried out his name as he recoiled, wondering what was happening. The light seemed to originate from his hand. He felt a strange pulling sensation, though he assured a concerned Hinami that he was physically fine, merely noting a warmth spreading from his finger. The pull grew stronger, and in a blink, Hinami was gone. In her place stood Cynthia Meridite, who excitedly grabbed his arm. She declared that the force was leading them to her house, musing that this must be how fantasy worlds operate. Ikuru could only look on, utterly bewildered. As she led him onward, he silently observed her unexpectedly forward nature. After a moment's thought, he concluded that it was probably for the best. They soon arrived at a quaint house surrounded by a garden. Cynthia spread her arms wide, joyfully announcing their arrival. Ikuru, surprised to find a dwelling in such a remote place, took note of the medicinal herbs planted near the fence. She confirmed his unspoken question with a proud smile, revealing herself to be an alchemist. She explained that she was growing the herbs there and asked him to keep her work a secret, adding that victory belongs to the one who acts first. The statement gave Ikuru a strange sense of déjà vu. He wondered aloud if her secret was significant enough to cause a worldwide uproar, and she affirmed that it was. Shifting topics, she formally welcomed him to her home and offered tea. Ikuru, maintaining his formal demeanor, requested that she at least allow him to pour it for her. Her expression shifted to an intense stare, which then broke into a smile as she addressed him as master. The title startled him, but she quickly corrected herself, calling him by a different name, Hinami. The name left him completely flustered. Cynthia quickly apologized, admitting that was her limit and urging him to forget she said anything before slumping in exhaustion. Later, she sat at her desk, writing in a journal that she was glad they arrived safely and had many things she wished to report to God. She awoke with the morning light, stretching as her mind immediately filled with the day's concerns. She thought about the trip into town, about someone named Thaichan and the others, and about Ikuru and Maro. Her thoughts then settled on the cursed slaves, a flicker of hope crossing her mind as she wondered if their curses could ever be lifted. As birds chirped outside, she sat up, a wave of confusion washing over her. She was sure she had fallen asleep at her desk, yet here she was in bed. Her eyes fell upon an exchange diary, and she opened it to find a message addressed to Hinami. The writer thanked her for her hard work, pleased by recent positive events, but also gently chided her for overworking, urging her to rest properly in bed. The realization dawned on her. Someone must have carried her. She continued to read the message from the being known as God. He confessed to being capable of jealousy, his tone turning possessive as he mentioned her contract with the cursed male slaves. While acknowledging the need for an escort, he delivered a stern warning not to belittle herself, hinting at punishments if she did. His warning left her feeling anxious, wondering if she had somehow angered him and earned his scorn. Her worry was short-lived, however, as the next line in the diary dismissed the threat entirely, revealing it was all just a joke. The jest was followed by a final, serious command. She was forbidden from flirting with other men, for Hinami belonged to him alone. Snapping the diary shut, she set it aside, quietly pondering why God worried about her so intensely. Her contemplation was cut short by a knock at the door. It was Ikuru, calling for Hinami-sama. She sat bolt upright, a hand flying to her forehead as a complex mix of happiness, embarrassment, and a feeling of utter uselessness washed over her. He stood hesitantly in the doorway, announcing that he had prepared breakfast and hoped she would eat soon. Already seated at the dining table, she gave a simple, slightly surprised assent. Before her was a simple yet wonderfully warm meal of pancakes and a savory side dish. Impressed, she asked who had taught him to cook, and he replied that it was someone who had cared for him before. After they both gave thanks for the food, she took her first bite, her eyes widening in delight as if she had tasted a piece of heaven. She beamed at him, expressing her sincere thanks and declaring the meal absolutely delicious. A faint blush colored Ikuru's cheeks as he watched her, fidgeting slightly before quietly affirming her praise. He replied that she was welcome, proposing they cook together in the future, which prompted her to point out that a rabbit couldn't possibly cook. The moment concluded, but a final note in the exchange diary added a postscript, a reminder to check the point count, which had increased, with an item called Miniature Garden's Door now listed at 50,000 points. In a room now overflowing with her creations, Hinami gestures grandly to countless shining vials. She excitedly presents her work to Ikuru, who stands behind her, observing the massive stockpile. He remarks with slight disbelief that she has made far too much. His gaze sweeps over wooden crates packed to the brim with sparkling potions, as he wonders aloud if she ever gets tired from making them every single day. She laughs softly, explaining that ever since he came, she has been putting a great deal of effort into creating health potions. Ikuru continues to organize the supplies in the background, listening to her reason. Her thoughts, however, drift to her true goal. She recalls a note from God, mentioning an item called the Miniature Garden's Door. With it, She could teleport to town for supplies and return home in the blink of an eye. It is an item she feels she must have. She considers the logistics. The door costs 50,000 points, and she currently has only 10,000. To earn more, she must exchange the potion she's making. She reflects on past purchases: a bathtub for 30 points, vials for 3, and a basement for 10. The door remains a distant goal. As she mulls over how subjugating demons might yield more points, Ikuru's voice cuts through her thoughts. He calls her mysterious and advises that synthesizing is the most efficient way to gather points, promising to keep at it. Hinami looks up at him, puzzled by his comment. He continues his observation, listing her unique abilities: cultivating medicinal herbs, mass-producing potions, and her general skills, none of which match any known alchemist in the country. He adds her ignorance about cursed slaves to the list. His final deduction strikes her with alarming accuracy. It is as if she is not from this world. Her heart pounds in her chest. She thought she had been discovered. The sheer terror of his deductive skills grips her. But then, Ikuru dismisses his own theory as impossible. Hinami exhales in a wave of comical relief, narrowly avoiding exposure. He turns away, holding one of the potions, and admits to himself that he still hasn't told her about God or his own circumstances, and isn't sure how. At the same time, Hinami realizes she should tell him everything, but she has no idea where to even begin. His mind flashes back to a conversation with God about this very matter. The deity had simply stated, "I'll leave the decision up to Hina." Burdened with this responsibility, Ikuru stares into the distance, lost in thought, wondering what he should do. He feels an intense stare and turns to see Hinami looking at him thoughtfully, wondering if he is being scrutinized. She simply acknowledges the situation with a quiet affirmation. She explains that she still doesn't know much about the curse, as there is no such thing as cursed slaves where she comes from. Because of this, she asks Ikuru to tell her more about himself and the curse, but requests his patience so she can first put her own thoughts in order. He quietly agrees. He decides that to explain everything properly, it is best to start from the very beginning. He begins to recount the ancient history of the world, a time before humans, animals, or trees, when there was only vast, empty land. The story continues. The sun and moon shone upon the land. Rain fell, and trees began to grow, forming forests. From the world itself, the goddess Lettuce was born. Feeling lonely, she created animals, humans, therianthropes, and spirits. They all lived happily, and that is how the world began. Having laid the foundation, he prepares to speak about the curses. He asks if she has any questions, and Hinami correctly deduces that the country is also named Lettuce after the goddess. As he confirms this, he begins to remove his shirt. The sudden action catches Hinami completely by surprise. He turns, revealing a complex, flower-like crest over the left side of his chest. He states plainly that this is the curse, believing it is faster for her to see it herself. Hinami stares, her hands clenched in shock. He then resumes his story, explaining that the goddess Lettuce brought happiness to everyone. He recounts that as time passed, the mortals who knew the goddess passed on, and people began to forget her. Centuries later, a tragedy struck. Her treasured gemflower was stolen. Overcome with sorrow, her tears flooded the world, and she ingrained a curse on those who stole the flower. As he finishes the tale, he puts his shirt back on. That, he explains, is the origin of the cursed slaves. The crest is the mark of their ancestors, passed down through every generation. Hinami, processing this, asks if the curse has a direct effect on the body. He confirms that it does, though the effects vary. It can limit skills or cause other abnormal conditions, a fact he recalls the woman at the guild had also mentioned. He concludes that the curse is the mark of sorrow left by the goddess, and is left to wonder about her current whereabouts. Hearing his story, Hinami's resolve hardened. Though it might sound arrogant, she decided then and there, if the goddess was still in this world, she wanted to save her. With her new goal in mind, she turned to Ikuru, announcing that it was time to start making potions. He seemed surprised, reminding her that she had been making health potions continuously for a week, but agreed they should hurry. As they stepped outside, her attention was immediately captured by a strange sight: a grove of trees with thick, tangled roots, shimmering with a faint light. Her confusion was mirrored by Ikuru, who identified the trees as magic mangroves. Both were stunned, questioning when a river could have possibly appeared in this location. He explained that this was a rare phenomenon. Water flowing from a magic mangrove becomes magic water, which in turn creates magic stones. As he spoke, Maro suddenly hopped forward with a cheerful cry. The small creature continued to call out, tapping its foot insistently. Realizing it wanted her to follow, Hinami hurried after it. It led them to the source, a pool of shimmering water that Hinami found beautiful. Though Ikuru suggested boiling it first, she decided to drink it directly. They both found it delicious and refreshing. As they savored the sweet taste, a sudden thought struck Ikuru. Before he could voice his thought, Hinami asked for his help with an idea. She explained there was something she wanted to try in her angel's sanctuary. She proceeded to use the magic water to moisten a patch of sand, planting some bluegrass within it. Her experiment was a success. With a cry of triumph, she held up the result: a completed marine potion, which hovered magically in the air before her. She turned to a stunned Ikuru, explaining her logic. She had reasoned that soaking a special powder, one of the key ingredients, with a magic water would improve the final product. Given the rarity of the components, she was certain this single potion would yield more points than usual. She sits alone on a bench under the night sky, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Thanks to the marine potion, she has earned a good number of points, enough that she should be able to get her own door soon. With this success, she resolves to make even more potions, but this thought brings another problem to the forefront of her mind. Her thoughts drift to Ikuru. She wonders if it's truly okay to tell him everything about herself. She recalls how, when she first arrived in this world, she didn't know anything and worked hard. But as time passed, a creeping loneliness began to take hold. Her contemplation is shattered by a sudden voice calling her name. Startled, she turns to see Ikuru, who explains that Maro had been looking for her. He asks what she's doing out here, and she replies that she was just looking at the stars, the same as him. She looks at him, a realization dawning on her. She had become so accustomed to spending time with Ikuru that she had completely forgotten about the loneliness that once plagued her. He sits down beside her, his expression somber. He confesses that before meeting her, he was actually afraid of being alone. Hinami listens, a slight tremor running through her. He continues, explaining that he had a little sister named Hannah who was stricken with a disease. Though God answered his prayers, he was told she wouldn't survive. Miraculously, she began to get better. He then reveals that when he first saw Hinami at the market, his immediate thought was, "It's Hannah." His story prompts a sudden confession from Hinami herself. Cradling Maro, she admits she would do anything for Hannah because she is her big sister. That, she explains, is why she's living here all alone. The weight of her words overwhelms her, and tears begin to well in her eyes. She wonders aloud what has gotten into her, why she is suddenly sharing all of this, and begins to apologize. Ikuru gently reaches out, his hand cupping her cheek to wipe a tear away. He gently holds her, his gaze intense as he asks the crucial question. What did she give to God in return for his help? His question elicits the final, painful truth. Through her tears, Hinami confesses that she agreed to become God's plaything. Ikuru understands, realizing she must have been alone and uncertain this whole time. Hinami's mind flashes back to her diary, remembering the scary days and the lonely nights, and how, despite the comfort the diary gave her, she never truly got used to being alone. She sat beside Ikuru under the vast, starry sky, reflecting on her recent efforts. A quiet question formed in her mind. Had she grown stronger, even if only by a little? He seemed to understand her unspoken thoughts, confirming that her recent, intense focus on making potions was indeed the reason she wanted the miniature garden's door. He affirmed that, yes, this was why he had to keep accumulating points from his own potion making. However, he pointed out a critical issue. The warehouse was packed to capacity and couldn't fit any more of their creations. Flustered, Hinami suggested that in that case, they could simply sell some in town. Her simple suggestion sparked an idea. Ikuru fell silent for a moment, his expression turning thoughtful as a solution began to take shape in his mind. He then presented his plan, reminding her that the door they acquired connects their current location to the house they bought in town. With a confident gleam in his eye, he proposed turning that very house into a shop. The idea left Hinami momentarily speechless. The logic was undeniable. Since they had to keep making potions, selling them was the most sensible path forward, rather than just letting them pile up in the warehouse. Ikuru agreed, declaring the matter settled. The thought of having her own shop filled Hinami with a rush of excitement. She pictured a charming storefront, a dream she had always secretly admired, and couldn't contain her joy. Ikuru's face lit up, seeing her happiness. He declared his intention to make it a cute shop, and, trusting her completely, decided to leave all the interior arrangements to her. The shared project clearly excited him as well. Later, alone again under the night sky, she reviewed her progress in a book. It showed her status. Kusugi Hinami, level 1, with 22,049 points earned just that day. With Maro sleeping soundly, she calculated the remaining points needed for her goal and renewed her vow to do her best again tomorrow. While gathering orange-colored herbs, the young man introduces himself as Ikuru, the cursed slave purchased by Hinami from the marketplace. Hinami, accompanied by her small rabbit companion, formally accepts her role as his master, explaining that she is a novice alchemist. She seems slightly flustered by the title, but tries to maintain her composure. As he watches her work, Ikuru recalls the terms of their arrangement. Hinami must collect points for the god who healed her younger sister. Suddenly, Hinami trips and tumbles to the ground, spilling the contents of her bucket with a clatter. He understands that her special skill allows her to produce an abnormally massive amount of potions, which is how she obtains points. These points can be exchanged for tools or other items. Ikuru reflects on their current goal, accumulating enough points for a teleportation device called the miniature garden's door. He finds it hard to believe that his new master was bought by a god, but his thoughts are interrupted by the sound of his stomach growling. Hearing the noise, Hinami cheerfully suggests they stop for lunch, offering to make sandwiches. Ikuru quietly agrees, thinking to himself that his new situation isn't so bad after all. Later, after much work, they finally reach their goal of 50,000 points. Hinami celebrates, excited that they can now exchange the points for the miniature garden's door. However, Ikuru calmly tells her wait, questioning if they should get the door right away. Hinami is taken aback, wondering why he would suggest delaying. He explains his reasoning. They have a problematic surplus of potions made to earn the points, but no space to store them. He proposes that it will be better to find a shop in town first, so they know where the door will connect. Impressed by his foresight, Hinami agrees, praising him for his cleverness. With a new plan to open an apothecary in town to sell their potions, the small rabbit asks Hinami what she will name their shop. She admits she hasn't thought about it yet. She briefly considers a very literal name. Be surprised when drinking Hinami's health restorative potion, but immediately rejects the idea, realizing it sounds terrible and would certainly fail to attract any customers. That evening, Hinami gets ready for bed, excited for the next day when she will visit the merchant guild to open her shop. She notices her cute pajamas and then spots a ribbon on her bed, a present for someone named Hina. Suddenly, her eyes widen in shock as she sees something unexpected in her room. The cause of her alarm is Reze, the god, sitting casually on her bed. He waves and greets her, explaining with a smile that he simply wanted to see her and came for a visit. Stunned by his sudden and uninvited appearance, Hinami recoils in utter disbelief. He softly offers to tie a ribbon in Hinami's hair, explaining that his current form is incomplete, so he cannot stay for long. Hinami, startled by his sudden, real presence, expresses a hint of disappointment before becoming flustered by his proximity, worrying that her hair is a mess. In response to her concern, he simply laughs and, with a sharp snap of his fingers, magically detangles her hair, leaving it shining and perfectly smooth. He then reveals that the ribbon has transformed into a delicate pink ring. He explains it is a moonflower ring, a gift that will allow her to speak with him whenever the moon rises. Awestruck by the magic, Hinami expresses her profound gratitude. Sometime later, Hinami excitedly recounts the previous night's events, thrilled that she was able to speak with the god and received such a wonderful surprise. From a distance, Reze listens in, pleased with her happiness and already thinking ahead to the matter of the magic mangroves. The memory of the moment is one of pure joy. Hinami, clutching the ring, beams with happiness, a sentiment mirrored by Reze's own delighted smile. Returning to the previous night, Reze observes the late hour and apologizes for keeping her awake, explaining that it had been some time since they last saw each other. He gently urges her to get some sleep, and she bids him good night. With that, he vanishes as suddenly as he appeared. From her bed, Hinami watches the empty space where he stood, musing on how busy the god must be. Meanwhile, in his own realm, Reze reflects on their brief meeting. He acknowledges his desire to have spoken with her longer, but feels content, considering himself already blessed by their interaction. As she settles into her pillow, Hinami softly speaks his title, the encounter still fresh in her mind. To her utter shock, he materializes right beside her in bed, playfully asking if she had called for him. He apologizes for the scare, confessing that he finds her so endearing when she looks lonely that he can't resist teasing her. He then gently prompts her, asking what was on her mind. She looked up at the being before her, her resolve firming. She wanted to understand him, and so she stated plainly that she would like to know more about him, the god named Reze. Delighted by her request, Reze floated above her bed, his expression bright. He declared himself happy that she wanted to know more and eagerly suggested they talk a great deal. Hinami, surprised by his enthusiasm, could only ask if he truly meant it. His smile softened as he gently quieted her excitement, telling her that first, she needed to sleep. He promised to remain by her side until she drifted off, calling her Hina. His tenderness left her blushing and speechless. The next morning, however, the effects of a restless night were clear. As she walked through the city streets with Ikuru, he noticed her fatigue. He asked if she was all right, pointing out that they had been walking for some time and she shouldn't overexert herself. Hinami admitted that she hadn't been able to sleep well. Concerned, he suggested they find a place to rest, gesturing toward a nearby tavern. The street around them was filled with the low chatter of other pedestrians. Once they were seated inside, Hinami stretched and sighed in relief, feeling refreshed. Ikuru mentioned that the merchant guild was close by, so they could afford to take their time. Hinami agreed, adding that she was hungry and ready to eat. She insisted she was fine, claiming it was important to improve her stamina. Ikuru remained unperturbed, calmly observing that he had fought demons on the way there without breaking a sweat. He turned his attention to the menu, deciding on a stir-fried dish. As they waited, their attention was drawn to a nearby table. A young man with pointed ears was gently chiding his companion, calling her a worrywart named Maruru. The young woman, Maruru, was captivated by something out of view, her eyes wide with wonder as she exclaimed how beautiful it was. Her companion, Takuto, watched her with a fond expression. From her table, Hinami noticed their distinctive ears and wondered if they were elves. Ikuru mused that they didn't seem to be enemies. Suddenly, their other companion, Cynthia, slammed her hands on the table, shouting that she'd had enough. Her outburst triggers a confrontation between the two elves. The male, Takuto, declares he will go alone and storms out of the tavern, slamming the gate behind him. His companion, Muru, calls for him to wait, but he is already gone, leaving the others in stunned silence. Hinami approaches the distraught elf girl, asking if she is alright. Maruru, looking embarrassed, apologizes for being seen in such a state. Hinami quickly reassures her, introducing herself as Kusunoki Hinami and asking for the elf's name. She introduces herself as Maruru Lambert and explains that both she and Takuto came from the elf village, but they had a disagreement. When Hinami inquires about the nature of their argument, Maruru reveals that Takuto wants to become an adventurer. Maruru continues, muttering that if Takuto becomes an adventurer, he won't be returning home anytime soon. She recalls telling him they should go home, unable to accept his ambition. Nearby, Cynthia internally scoffs at the idea, considering the life of an adventurer to be barbaric. Suddenly, Ikuru interjects, asking Maruru how she knew he was an adventurer. The question catches both Maruru and Hinami completely off guard. After a brief, tense silence, Hinami turns to Ikuru, asking if he is an esper. Ikuru, however, seems genuinely confused, questioning when he ever said he was an adventurer in the first place. She presses him, asking why he would hide such a fact. Ikuru avoids a direct answer, stating only that he has a situation. Maruru then elaborates on her own circumstances. She reveals they are from the elf village of Agres on another continent and are on an errand to find something here. She confesses that Takuto has long dreamed of adventure, and this errand is merely a way to manage his excitement. She fears that if he learns she is an adventurer, he will insist on becoming one and will surely fail. Hinami questions this, asking if it isn't normal for boys to want to be adventurers. Maruru turns to her, explaining that while it's usually fine, there's no real reason for her to be one. Leaning forward with a strained expression, she shouts the true reason for her concern. Takuto is extremely weak. While Cynthia calmly wonders about Maruru's specific criteria for weakness, Hinami is completely overwhelmed. She throws her hands up in a panic, wailing that she can't take the stress anymore. Despite her outburst, she suggests that even if Takuto is weak, he should at least enroll in the adventurer's beginner course. Maruru thanks Hinami for the advice and, after asking them to be careful, departs to find her friend. Cynthia calmly acknowledges her departure. Sometime later, while walking through town, Hinami asks how Cynthia knew Maruru was an adventurer. Ikuru explains that he simply saw her guild card in her pocket. This relieves Hinami, who confesses she had assumed it was one of Ikuru's hidden skills. Her mention of the topic prompts Ikuru to suggest that she should attend the newbie training herself. He describes it as a place where new adventurers learn essential knowledge and train to build their strength, recommending she start with the classroom lessons before moving on to practical training. The idea of a school for adventurers excites Hinami, who eagerly declares she wants to try it. Ikuru agrees to head toward the Adventurers Guild, noting that they will need to make an appointment. He seems certain that they will be seeing Maruru again. Their conversation shifts back to the elves. Cynthia wonders why they are here, as elven tribes rarely show themselves. Ikuru confirms this, explaining that most elves do not leave their home of Agres, and those who cross the sea on errands tend to avoid interacting with others. Cynthia concedes that Maruru didn't seem like a bad person, and Ikuru agrees it's best not to get involved. He then adds a quiet warning, stating that Hinami is very easily tricked and that there are people in the world who can lie with a straight face. A small, annoyed doodle appears, reflecting Hinami's unspoken feelings. His assessment provokes a protest from Hinami, who insists she has common sense. Her voice softens as she admits that she simply doesn't want to doubt people and prefers to believe in them. Ikuru seems to find her earnestness hopeless, while Cynthia is shocked he accepted such a naive person so readily. Hearing her heartfelt declaration, Ikuru turns away slightly. He quietly vows that even if she were to be tricked, he would always be there to protect her, no matter the circumstances. His sudden promise catches her off guard. When she asks what he meant, he dismisses it as nothing and says he'll be in her care. Hinami's cheeks flush as she looks away, telling herself it's only natural for her escort to say such things, though a hint of uncertainty remains. Still feeling the warmth from Ikuru's words, she walks with a contented smile, a soft giggle escaping her lips. Internally, she feels a giddy excitement, a feeling she keeps tucked away, unspoken. Her quiet joy suddenly bursts forth into energetic action. Filled with newfound determination, she turns to Ikuru and declares they should race to the guild, framing it as an opportunity to build her stamina. He can only look on, bewildered by her abrupt change in demeanor. Before he can properly react, she shouts, "Ready, go," and dashes down the cobblestone street. As she speeds away, Ikuru calmly calls out, pointing in the opposite direction to inform her that she's heading the wrong way for the merchant guild. Meanwhile, back at their lodgings, Maro is left in charge of the house. The small creature lies stretched out on a cushion, the very picture of boredom. At the Adventurers Guild, a receptionist with long rabbit ears and spectacles confirms an adventurer's wish to attend their lessons. She explains that the beginner's course involves 1 week of practical training and 3 days of classroom instruction. Meanwhile, Hinami and Ikuru arrive at that very guild. Hinami enthusiastically confirms their arrival, while Ikuru quietly observes that they were supposed to go to the merchant guild first to open her store, finding her excitement a bit loud. The registration documents detail the course structure. The daily commitment is noted to be 5 to 6 hours, a considerable length of time. As they wait, Hinami glances around, noting that Maruru isn't present despite having mentioned she would be accompanying Takuto. She wonders if they got lost. Just then, a familiar voice calls out her name, and she turns to see Cynthia Merudite. Cynthia rushes over, overjoyed, exclaiming how happy she is to see Hinami again and how important her first friends are. As they greet each other, Alfredo asks Cynthia who the boy with Hinami is, noting that they had just finished their own training. He steps forward and bows deeply to answer the question himself. He introduces himself as Ikuru, clarifying that he is Hinami's cursed slave. The sudden revelation startles both Cynthia and Alfredo. Cynthia reacts with shock, but then makes a startling confession of her own. Karuto is her cursed slave, and they even have an engraved crest. This surprises Hinami. Alfredo, however, expresses relief, stating he was worried for Hinami's safety and is glad she has Ikuru to look after her. With the introduction settled, Cynthia asks why Hinami is at the Adventurers Guild. Hinami explains her intention to open a potion store, which requires a visit to the Merchants Guild. Cynthia's expression becomes serious as she warns that the Merchants Guild can be difficult to deal with. The group proceeds to the Merchants Guild, where they meet the guild master, a woman with fox-like ears named Mariage Rustin, whom Alfredo had recommended. After Hinami states her purpose, to open a shop that sells potions, Mariage bluntly denies her request. She elaborates on her swift refusal, stating that even with Alfredo's backing, Hinami is simply too young to be a merchant. Her decision is presented as final, leaving Hinami's plans at a sudden impasse. She watches as the guild master, Mariage Rustin, contemplates the situation. After a moment of thought, Mariage's expression softens as she seems to understand the circumstances. With a decisive shift, Mariage announces she will make an exception, much to the delight of Hinami and her friends. The guild master explains the 3 core rules of the contract. Do not cause problems for the guild, be transparent about your business, and pay your taxes. She then presents Hinami with a beautiful, crystalline orb in an ornate box, instructing her to place it at the front of her future store. She holds up the orb, revealing it to be a white magic tool created by the guild itself. Its purpose is to detect illegal activity. Should the store sell forbidden products, the orb will turn a muddy, blackish color. Mariage bluntly states that the tool's existence is a top-secret matter. Hinami marvels at the advanced technology. Her explanation continues, covering the local business regulations. Shops on the main street have no days off, while those in the center, on small streets, or in alleys have increasingly flexible hours. Taxes, she stresses, are vital for the country's development. Hearing this, Hinami and Ikuru quietly agree that a shop on a small street or in an alley would be best for them. Ikuru voices his opinion that an alley would be better, as they wouldn't have to worry about set opening times. Mariage then turns to Hinami, asking what kind of shop she intends to open, as that will guide their next steps. She describes her ideal shop as something cute, warm, and comfortable. The decision is made almost instantly. As Mariage instructs her secretary, Baru, to begin looking for a suitable property, Hinami privately reflects that Alfredo's powerful influence must have been the deciding factor in this outcome. As plans move forward, Ikuru suddenly freezes, asking a critical question: the name of the store. Flustered, Hinami realizes she hasn't thought of one and impulsively blurts out, "Ikurin shop." Ikuru is stunned into silence, begging her to wait. Their playful argument earns a chuckle from the guildmaster, who notes how well they get along and assures them there's no rush to decide on a name. Just then, her secretary returns, announcing she has already found a promising property. She asks if they would like to view it immediately, and the 2 youths eagerly agree. With the immediate business concluded, Mariage formally welcomes Hinami and Ikuru to the Merchants Guild, promising her full support should any problems arise. Hinami thanks her profusely. Alfredo announces that he and Ikuru will go with Hinami to see the property, parting ways with Cynthia for now. Outside the guild hall, the secretary introduces herself as Baru. She leads them through the city, explaining that the recommended property is located on a side street known for its many specialty stores. As they walk, Hinami takes in the charming atmosphere of the area. As they walked, their guide, Baru, pointed out a bookstore she regularly visits. Hinami asked Ikuru if he would like to go, assuming he must love books, and he agreed. Trying to contain her own excitement about their venture, Hinami then spotted a cute general store nearby. The conversation sparked a thought in Baru's mind as she glanced at the documents on her clipboard. She mentioned that she'd heard Hinami was a well-known alchemist with an abundant knowledge of plants. Surprised, Hinami admitted that she was honestly just a novice and still planned to learn much more. She let out a sheepish laugh, feeling quite ashamed by the lofty reputation, as Ikuru remained silent beside her. Baru smiled, clarifying that she was merely curious, before announcing that they had arrived at their destination. She presented the recommended property, a charming 2-story building nestled between others on the street. Hinami looked up, an expression of awe on her face. Inside, Baru explained the layout. The first floor was about 6 tatama mats, with a second floor and a 3 tatama mat storeroom. Hinami thought it was both cute and fancy. She spun around in delight, realizing the number of rooms wasn't an issue since they could use the miniature garden's teleportation door, and fewer rooms meant less to clean. Baru asked Ikuru for his thoughts on the small space, but he was focused on Hinami's joyful reaction. Stopping her twirl, Hinami declared the place was great and asked for Ikuru's opinion. He agreed that he was fine with it as well. With the decision made, Baru confirmed that everything was settled and thanked them, preparing to handle the procedure back at the guild. Before leaving, she handed them a document, instructing them to decide on a store name, write it on the paper, and submit it to the merchant guild. With a final, okay, Hinami accepted the form. She decides it's best they discuss the name for their new shop together, even if it's not her preferred way of doing things. He reads her suggestion from the paper, Hinami's miniature garden. Ikuru thinks it sounds good, but Hinami finds it random, questioning why her own name is in it. He explains that many merchants name their shops after themselves, but she becomes annoyed, misinterpreting the name as a comment on her small stature. She insists that just because the characters for Hinami can mean miniature, it doesn't mean she is a small person. He clarifies that he meant the shop itself is small and cute, so the name expresses its essence well. Flustered by the compliment she thought was directed at her, Hinami blushes intensely. She calls him an idiot for the misunderstanding before quickly agreeing to the name, declaring Hinami's miniature garden to be a cute name. Ikuru observes that she sounds like she's forcing herself to agree. With the name settled, Hinami decides to exchange her points for a special item, the miniature garden's door. She hopes it will work, excitedly imagining it connecting their home directly to the shop. With their task complete, she and Ikuru prepare to depart. Back in their room, a sudden loud clack echoes from above them, catching both of their attentions. The source of the sound is a beautiful, vine-covered double door that has materialized on their wall. Hinami opens it, amazed that the item worked and has successfully connected to their home. She steps through the doorway and finds herself in the living room of their new shop. Ikuru, startled but pleased, welcomes her back. Meanwhile, at the Merchants Guild, Baru attends to Mariage, who is seated in a wheelchair. Baru expresses concern, telling Mariage not to push herself after using her skill. Mariage dismisses the worry, thanking Baru for her hard work and for bringing them to her. The guild master's attention is fixed on her guests. She perceives a calm and warm aura around Hinami, shining as if blessed by divine protection. In contrast, she sees Ikuru as a cursed slave boy, yet also recognizes him as a beautiful, honed, and sincere child. She concludes that Hinami is indeed a mysterious child. She continues her thoughts aloud to Baru, remarking that the two are good kids, though their situation is quite unfortunate. Mariage explains that her skill, Fairy's Guide, which allows her to see one's true nature, consumes a great deal of stamina. Baru offers her some potions received from Hinami, which Mariage recognizes as the revolutionary potions being sold in the alley. She wistfully remarks that her grandfather, the former guild master, would have been happy. She sat in contemplation, her back to her secretary, Baru. Baru, peering over her shoulder, quietly worried if she would be able to protect Hinami, especially if someone tried to use the girl's apothecary skills for evil. Baru quickly voiced her complete faith, however, certain that with Mariage-sama overseeing things, everything would be all right. She then added that she would be there to help as well. A warm smile spread across Mariage's face as she thanked her loyal secretary. A moment later, Baru remembered the plant collecting request and asked if Hinami was aware of it. Mariage confirmed she was not. Her attention was fixed on a document before her, one detailing a grave matter, the truth of the royal family. An illustration of a peculiar fruit accompanied the text, and Mariage knew that a powerful clan was actively searching for this very thing. Meanwhile, through the newly placed magical door, Hinami and Ikuru stood in their garden. Unbeknownst to them, they were being observed from the other side. Inside a room where gentle snowflakes seemed to fall, a small girl in a winter cloak stood atop a chair, her gaze fixed on the newcomers. She pondered what was to come for the continent before directing a simple, direct question to the figures in the doorway. "Who are you?" A small girl with large, round mouse-like ears dashes forward, her face alight with pure joy. She calls out Hinami's name, exclaiming that she has waited so very long for her. The girl is suddenly restrained by Ikuru, who demands to know who she is, stating firmly that this is Hinami's home. Hinami, startled, recognizes Ikuru but is confused by the girl's claims, pointing out that Maro is supposed to be a snow rabbit. The girl struggles against Ikuru's grip, panicking as she insists that she is, in fact, Maro. To prove her point, the actual snow rabbit, Maro, hops forward and lets out a cry. With a sudden poof, the creature transforms into a small, wispy cloud of smoke, leaving both Hinami and Ikuru completely stunned. From that very smoke, the small girl bursts forth, confirming her identity. She giggles, delighted that she can transform into a human, and asks for praise. She marvels at how soft and cute her new form is, declaring herself a strong spirit, though Hinami privately finds her personality a bit disappointing. Despite this, Hinami gently holds the small, human form Maro, stroking her head. She finds her incredibly soft and small, a feeling that strongly reminds her of her own little sister. From a short distance, Ikuru watches them. The sensation triggers a vivid memory of her sister, Hannah, smiling with pure joy and asking her to come play together. As Ikuru thoughtfully considers the situation, Maro explains a critical limitation. She can only maintain her human form while inside what she calls God's miniature garden. Ikuru acknowledges this, finding it quite unfortunate. This new information prompts Hinami to ask a practical question, wondering if Maro is able to stay in her human form at the store in town. Maro leads them to a doorway that opens directly into the garden, triumphantly declaring that it works. She explains that the shop is connected to the miniature garden, and she dances with joy, happy that they will now be able to talk to each other a lot. Their excitement quickly fades as they all look out the shop window. Maro realizes with a start that she cannot leave the building. Ikuru confirms her fear, explaining that this is an expected limitation, as Hinami's skill does not extend beyond the town's borders. Hinami looks on, a wave of disappointment washing over her the thought that Maro is unable to go into town with them. Despite her confinement, Maro turns with a bright, determined smile, assuring them it's fine. She eagerly volunteers to help Hinami by taking care of the store, declaring that they should all work hard together. Her enthusiasm is infectious. Ikuru reminds Hinami that they need to submit the guild registration form, and she agrees, adding that they will have to do their best from now on. From the doorway, Maro cheerfully promises to house sit. As they walk through town after submitting the form, Hinami thanks Ikuru for his hard work. She then remembers he wanted to visit the bookstore and suggests they go, but he tells her there's no need to rush. They arrive at the bookstore nonetheless. Pushing the door open with a creak, they call out a tentative hello into the vast, silent space, which is filled from floor to ceiling with towering shelves of books. It appears to be completely empty. From behind a stack of books, a voice suddenly welcomes them. A calm figure wearing glasses emerges, asking what kind of book they are looking for, startling Hinami with their sudden appearance. He asks if they have any interesting antique books, though Hinami worries she sounded rude. The proprietor simply acknowledges the request and, to her surprise, offers to recommend something for them. The proprietor returns with several tomes, including The Goddess Lettuce Reel and The Flower Gem, and one on medicinal compounding. He muses that his customer must be important to God, confirming he knows exactly what she needs. He then hands a book to Ikuru. As he takes the book, Ikuru cautiously asks the proprietor who he is. Hinami stares at the cover of her own book, a sudden realization striking her. The proprietor simply laughs and tells them not to be scared. Before an explanation can be given, a tiny, winged boy materializes in the air. He announces that he is the one choosing the books. Ikuru stares in disbelief, while the proprietor remarks that it's rare for the spirit to show himself, adding that it must be because Hinami smells nice. The being proudly introduces himself as a book spirit, unique in this world, who can see the red thread between people and books. As Hinami marvels at this, the proprietor explains that this power is why the books were recommended to her, clarifying that it only works for those who truly need and love books. The bookstore owner smiles reassuringly at Ikuru, promising there is nothing suspicious about their establishment. With the purchase finalized, they thank Hinami, noting that it saves them the trouble of choosing the books themselves. As Hinami and Ikuru depart from the curious shop, the owner and the small book spirit see them off, asking them to share their thoughts once they've finished reading. Outside, Hinami glances at Ikuru, who is staring intently at the book he now holds. She wonders what kind of book the spirit recommended for him and feels a strong desire to ask, but refrains, thinking it would be overstepping her bounds. Her thoughts are interrupted when a local merchant asks if they would like to open a booth, a question that leaves Ikuru momentarily confused. The idea is to set up a stall to sell their potions, which would build their reputation and show the public what they offer. Seeing the logic, Hinami agrees, and they resolve to enact the plan the following day. However, when the time comes, their market stall is met with silence. No customers approach, and a potential buyer is overheard remarking that the prices are too expensive. Ikuru muses that while their prices are already quite low, they might still be too high for a simple street booth. He questions if they should lower them further, but Hinami expresses concern that it would look suspicious when they eventually revert to the original price. Their discussion is cut short by a familiar voice calling Hinami's name. It is Alfredo Merudaiti, looking surprised to see her there. Hinami, equally startled, explains they are holding a promotional sale before their shop officially opens. He listens intently, expressing his delight that her shop is opening as planned. With a respectful bow, Hinami credits his and everyone else's assistance for her progress. She then offers to prepare something for him as a token of her gratitude. With a charming smile, he dismisses her thanks, stating it is merely his gratitude. He then announces his intention to gift her furniture as a celebration for her store's opening, insisting she accept it. Hinami is stunned into silence as a crowd begins to gather, drawn by the nobleman's presence. She protests that she would feel guilty accepting such a gift. Changing the subject, he asks if she would be willing to prepare some potions for him. Flustered by the request and the attention, Hinami quickly agrees, promising to prepare them immediately. Alfredo tells her he will leave it in her hands. He then gently pats her head, thanking her for her constant help before bidding her farewell. As he walks away, Hinami is left blushing, her hand rising to touch the spot where he had just patted her. Watching him depart, she reflects on how mature and well-mannered he is, despite being younger than her. She turns to speak to Ikuru, but before she can get a word out, she is interrupted. Suddenly, a group of excited young women swarms her stall. They bombard her with questions, eagerly asking if she is acquainted with Alfredo and if he is a regular user of her potions. Hinami throws her hands up, completely overwhelmed by the sudden, intense attention. She finds herself surrounded by a throng of Alfredo's fans, all clamoring for the potions he endorsed. Beside her, Ikuru tries to manage the sudden rush, announcing that the current price is for today only. Hinami can only stammer, taken aback by the nobleman's immense popularity. The crowd's enthusiasm is overwhelming. They stomp forward, shouting their desire to buy, and in a flash, the stall is nearly sold out. Exhausted, Hinami sits with Ikuru, remarking on Alfredo's popularity. Ikuru agrees, noting that Alfredo is, after all, the flame sorcerer. His comment about the title piques their interest. Alfredo, who has lingered nearby, explains that there are two kinds of titles, those bestowed by the king and those earned personally. He holds up 2 fingers, clarifying that his was given to him by the king. Hinami finds his lack of boasting mature, while Ikuru is surprised. Hinami then realizes she doesn't even know who the country's leader is. Alfredo continues his explanation, stating that titles can also be obtained by defeating powerful demons, which naturally suits a person to their element. Hinami finds this system logical. This train of thought leads her to a sudden realization. She received a title from God before she arrived. It must be God Regree's blessing. Her mind drifts back to that moment, recalling the divine being's words. He had told her his name was Regree's, a name that meant he would always be watching over her. The memory is vivid, his gentle expression as he held a small spark of light in his hand, a symbol of his presence. As Hinami is lost in her thoughts, Ikuru has a similar reflection. He feels he is always being protected and recognizes his own weakness. He resolves to grow stronger so that one day he can return the favor to God. His quiet vow is broken when a voice calls out to Hinami. She turns to see Maro, the elven girl, being supported by Takuto. Maruru is weeping, her face etched with pain from an apparent injury. Seeing her distress, Hinami rushes to her side. Takuto urges them to treat Maruru's injuries first. Hinami, concerned, asks what happened. Without waiting for full explanation, Ikuru decides on immediate action. He declares they will use one of the leftover potions. A vial is uncorked, and the healing liquid is dripped onto a wounded, bleeding arm. She watches as the potion she administered emits a brilliant flash of light, enveloping the wound. The healing magic works in an instant, leaving the onlookers stunned by its immediate effect. With the immediate danger past, they gather around a table. Hinami, concerned, asks Maruru what kind of demon attacked them. Takuto interjects, explaining that the situation was perilous. Had the fight lasted any longer, he would have lost his leg. The memory of the encounter is still fresh. Takuto lies exhausted, the severity of his injuries a testament to the creature's power. Maro, her expression a mixture of worry and frustration, is pressed again to seriously identify their attacker. She hesitates for a moment before quietly uttering a single, unbelievable word, slime. The answer hangs in the air, met with stunned silence from Ikuru and Hinami. Maruru's composure then breaks, and she wails in frustration, exclaiming that she had warned Takuto about how incredibly weak he was. Her outburst leaves Hinami utterly bewildered. She finds it hard to believe someone could lose to a slime, a creature they use for beginner's practice. As Takuto bursts into tears from the humiliation, Maruru suggests they all enroll in the beginner's class together. The entire ordeal sparks a sudden, firm resolve in Hinami. Clenching her fist, she decides that from this day forward, she will begin muscle training every night before bed. With only 3 days remaining until the grand opening of Hinami's miniature garden, the final preparations were well underway. The list of potions was submitted to the Merchants Guild. The shop and its wares were officially named, and the signboard was ordered and completed. Inside the bustling shop, Maruru called Hinami over to show her a new creation. It was a bottle of scented magic flower aroma, a special item Maro had made. Maruru explained that its scent could ward off demons. Overjoyed, Hinami thanked the little snow rabbit, who puffed up with pride and demanded more praise. She then turned to Maro with a request, asking if the creature could watch the shop while she and Ikuru headed to the appraisal shop. Maro saluted smartly, readily agreeing to the task. As they departed, Maro wished them a safe trip, but then fell silent, a sudden stillness coming over the small creature. From outside, Hinami glanced back and noticed the change in demeanor before they continued on their way, eventually returning with their business concluded. Their trip was a success. They managed to get the certificate for their potions. The group celebrated, knowing this would prove the amazing effects of their creations to customers. The old man at the appraisal shop was left muttering in disbelief, wondering if his eyesight was failing him after witnessing the potion's quality. While walking back, Hinami mentioned that she had also included Maro's scented magic flower aroma for appraisal, noting that its effects were just as remarkable as their other potions. Her comment prompted Ikuru to recall Maro's strange behavior when they left. Maruru pieced it together, suggesting that Maro was likely feeling lonely watching the shop all by herself and was probably trying to hide it. The realization struck Hinami. She understood now. Snow rabbits are typically demons that stay together in large groups. so being alone must be quite lonely. She resolved to do something for Maro. Ikuru watched her, understanding her concern. Upon their return, a loud thudding announced Maro's excited approach. The snow rabbit shouted Hinami's name, explaining she had been out picking flowers. More importantly, a letter in a small pouch had arrived, addressed to Hinami. Taking the envelope, Hinami flinched slightly as she immediately recognized the distinctive handwriting of God. The letter expressed his gladness that her venture was going well and his confidence that the store would be popular. As a gift to celebrate the opening, he had sent something he thought would suit her. Inside the pouch were 2 adorable new uniforms. Maro was overjoyed to discover one was for her. As they tried them on, Hinami couldn't help but feel the cute design might be too much for someone who was actually 21, while Ikuru looked on. She and her friends admire their new uniforms. Maruru exclaims how cute Maro looks, while Hinami marvels at how perfectly the apron God provided fits Ikuru. She thanks him, noting that even he is wearing one because Maro keeps pestering him. Hinami giggles, happy about the unexpected congratulatory gift for their store opening. Her quiet moment of contentment is interrupted as Ikuru, standing by the window, catches sight of something outside. He stares intently, recognizing the figure of God standing just beyond their property. At that moment, a voice from the front door calls out, asking for permission to enter, catching the attention of Hinami and Maru. Opening the door, they find a cheerful young man who confirms he's at the right place, addressing Hinami directly. With a grunt of effort, the man hefts a large cloth-draped object, announcing that he has arrived to deliver their new signboard. He unveils the beautifully crafted sign for Hinami's miniature garden. Hinami and Miruru gasp in delight at how cute and beautiful it is. The craftsman proudly explains that the sign is made from magic wood and that they are committed to providing excellent service. As Hinami offers to get a ladder, her hand clenches in anticipation. Before she can move, a sudden force rips the heavy sign from the craftsman's hands, sending it flying upwards with a powerful gust of wind. The sign settles perfectly into place above the storefront with a solid thud. Hinami stares in amazement. The craftsman, undeterred, gives a thumbs up, declaring it well made. He explains that even if the magical tree it came from is cut down, its flowers will continue to bloom. As he departs, the craftsman tells Ikuru to call him immediately if the vines require maintenance. Hinami turns to Ikuru, cheerfully remarking on how wonderful the sign is. She trails off, noticing his troubled expression. "What's wrong?" she asks, but he dismisses it. Suddenly, God is standing beside them. He remarks that the man from the signboard shop has good muscles, then turns to Hinami with a serious look. He warns her that before she gets her hopes up, it would be best to start with stretching exercises first, leaving her completely baffled. She struggles with her stretches, already feeling her limit. Ikuru advises her that it's fine to start with lighter exercises, but she insists that she'll get better from now on, even if she can't do it well at first. As she pushes herself, Maruru suddenly intervenes, holding Maro protectively. She loudly accuses Ikuru of bullying Hinami. He calmly denies it, stating that of course no one is good at things in the beginning. Her defense grows more impassioned. She declares that even if Hinami is an airhead and clumsy, it doesn't mean she's terrible because she is always doing her very best. She then pointedly asks Maro if it understands what constitutes verbal abuse. A short while later, as the group stands near some large pots, Hinami's expression changes. She sniffs the air, detecting the faint smell of blood. Ikuru and Maruru are confused, but before they can react, the cat-eared girl grabs Hinami's arm, urging her and Ikuru to come with her. She leads them into the nearby forest, a sense of unease washing over Hinami. The group searches the undergrowth as Hinami realizes the smell of blood is stronger here, likely from a demon attack. Suddenly, she spots the source, a small, injured cat lying motionless on the ground. Kneeling beside the creature, she explains to the others that she heard its voice calling for its friends for help, which is how she knew its location. The others are amazed, realizing it's proof of her connection to animals. Without hesitation, Hinami produces a potion to treat the cat. She carefully administers the potion, letting the liquid drip into the small cat's mouth. Moments later, the potion takes effect. The cat, now wrapped in a cloth for warmth, begins to stir. Back inside, the rescued cat leaps playfully onto Maruru's head, fully recovered. Ikuru observes that since it has no collar, it's most likely a stray. Maruru is simply overjoyed that the creature is safe, exclaiming how cute it is. She gently takes the cat into her arms, its tiny paws tapping against her chin as it mews. Seeing that it looks hungry, she decides they should give it some milk. The tender moment brings tears to Maruru's eyes, while Ikuru and the cat-eared girl look on. She agrees with Ikuru's assessment that the stray cat likely has no one looking for it. Nearby, the cat-eared girl excitedly presents their new feline friend to Maro. She watches with a warm smile as the cat-eared girl joyfully plays, tossing Maro into the air. The discussion turns to the cat's future. Ikuru suggests it would be best to raise it there, and the cat-eared girl enthusiastically agrees, noting that Maro would have fun with a companion while watching the shop. The cat itself seems content, lapping for a bowl of milk, while Maro excitedly asks if they can keep it. Overjoyed by the decision, the cat-eared girl throws her arms around Hinami, exclaiming her name in delight. She promises that Maro is being well cared for and that they will all play together every day, before confessing with a heartfelt smile that she likes Hinami very much. Later that night, the cat-eared girl offers Ikuru a hug as well, but he politely declines. The night deepens, and she and Hinami fall asleep together in bed, with Maro nestled between them. In another room, Ikuru sits up abruptly on his bed, unable to rest. He lets out a sigh, thinking about how terrible Hinami's stretches are and the stiffness she must endure daily. He resolves to prepare a stretching focus schedule for her starting the next day, jotting down notes. He pauses his writing, reflecting that he is only her escort. Honestly, there's no need for him to be so deeply involved. His thoughts drift further as he looks over his notes. He wonders if her efforts are all for the sake of the being she calls God, concluding that, regardless of the reason, Hinami is a truly good person. He recalls his initial impression of this god. When he first heard of him from Hinami, he imagined a manipulative being who controlled others by exploiting their weaknesses. From an objective perspective, considering the conditions of their pact, he realizes Hinami is at an overwhelming disadvantage, even if it is all to save her younger sister. His thoughts linger on the hooded sweatshirt hanging nearby, a physical reminder of his circumstances. He is sure that the gift he received is from God as well. The thought conjures a fleeting memory, the face of a woman with long, light hair, her expression one of serene happiness. The vision vanishes, leaving a bitter aftertaste. Sitting on the edge of the sofa, he quietly admits to himself that he doesn't like it. He rises from the sofa with a yawn, his mind turning to the divine being who orchestrates these events. He finds it hard to believe that someone like that just appeared, writing fates in a book. Suddenly, a sharp pang of loss strikes him. He clutches his chest as the feeling of missing something or someone overwhelms his senses. His hand trembles slightly as he reaches for a mug. He stands alone, realizing he needs to get his thoughts in order. There have been too many things to worry about lately. He steps outside, looking up at the newly hung sign for their establishment. A weary sigh escapes him as he takes in the name, Hinami's General Store. Back inside, he looks over the bed where Hinami and the cat-eared girl are sleeping soundly together. He considers that perhaps some wounds will heal after some sleep, and decides he should rest too. With a loud slam, Takuto bows deeply over a table, his voice filled with remorse as he offers a sincere apology. Earlier that morning, he had arrived at Hinami's store. Now, sitting across from him, she clutches a cushion and asks what exactly happened. She recalls having only met him twice, initially imagining him to be a violent person. Her mind races with worry, wondering if he's trying to silence her about his embarrassing defeat by a slime, a fact she knows she shouldn't mention. He looks up, his expression earnest. He explains that he heard from Maruru that Hinami had saved him and that he came to express his gratitude, admitting he doesn't know what would have become of him otherwise. He continues, confessing how excited he was when he finally became an adventurer. In response, Hinami simply tells him it's no problem and that he is welcome. He shakes his head, lamenting that his performance was not cool at all. With a gentle smile, he mentions that Maruru is strong despite her appearance, which fuels his own desire to become stronger, just as Hinami suspected. He explains that because they are childhood friends, the people in their village always assumed they were a couple, even though Maruru tried to hide it. This revelation startles Hinami, who blurts out, "Not lovers." Her direct question makes him recoil, shaking his head frantically as he insists it's impossible for someone like him to be by her side. Hinami, however, quietly thinks to herself that they suit each other very well. He clenches his fist, his resolve hardening. He reveals that Maruru is from a family lineage that has governed their village for generations, and as a weakling, he feels he would never be acknowledged as a man worthy of her. He vows that he will get stronger. His eyes gleam with newfound purpose as he declares that no matter how weak he is now, he will aim for the top. He boasts that next time, a slime won't even be an enemy. Hinami is impressed by his enthusiasm, already thinking of preventive measures to help him. She listens, completely bewildered, as Takuto smoothly recites an incredibly detailed and complex battle plan. He explains the precise distances for engagement with a slime, the exact moment to swing his sword to avoid being hit within a 30-meter radius, and the defensive posture the slime will take, all while noting he has already begun researching dragons at the library. Hinami can only stare, confused by his intensity. As he trails off, feeling hopeless about his own monologue, a voice calls down from the top of the stairs. It is Ikuru, asking what she is doing. Before she can answer, Takuto quickly invites Hinami to join him for the beginner's course. Ikuru, now at the bottom of the stairs, apologizes for having overslept and welcomes their guest. His visit concluded, Takuto extends a hand with a bright smile, formally introducing himself as Takuto Milef but insisting she just call him Takuto. She accepts his handshake, introducing herself as Kusunoki Hinami and asking him to simply call her Hinami. With a final farewell, he departs. After he is gone, Ikuru asks why the young elf came to visit. Hinami explains that Takuto was expressing his gratitude for her treating his injuries and was already calculating strategies for his next encounter. Ikuru remarks that it seems pointless to strategize so heavily against mere slimes. Noticing his tired expression, she asks if he just woke up. Ikuru confirms that he went to sleep late the previous night. Seeing this, Hinami announces that she will be making omuris for their breakfast. Following the meal, a sign is prepared and hung outside the building, officially establishing her new business, Hinami's miniature garden. Life settles into a quiet rhythm. Inside, Hinami, Ikuru, and a young girl with animal ears share a meal together, establishing their small household. At times, she watches Ikuru from a distance as he tends to the garden, a quiet observer of his work. Her days are filled with the careful work of alchemy, sitting amongst her plants and potions under the vast night sky as Ikuru watches over her. All her preparation culminates in a grand opening. She thanks a customer for purchasing 2 bottles of high potions and scented magic paper, apologizing that another item is out of stock. Then, with a brilliant, joyful smile, she loudly welcomes the bustling crowd into Hinami's miniature garden. She celebrated cheerfully with a cafe employee, assuring him that staying up late was no problem. She held the record for never being late at her previous job. Just then, Ikuru appeared at the entrance to the basement, wondering why the lights were still on. He answered her unspoken question, explaining that he couldn't sleep and had just come for a glass of water. He then turned the question back to her, asking why she was up so late. Hearing this, she paused thoughtfully for a moment, her hand to her chin, before an idea seemed to strike her. A playful notion came to mind, and she teased him, suggesting he was too excited to sleep. Ikuru immediately denied it. Hinami, undeterred, explained her reasoning. Since it was already past midnight, it was technically tomorrow, and therefore he should go to bed. Her logic left him completely baffled. He changed the subject, his tone growing more serious. He observed that she had seemed very distracted lately, and had even overslept that day, wondering what was wrong. Hinami was surprised he had noticed, calling his assumption that she wouldn't notice mean. She quickly reassured him that it was nothing to worry about. She had simply been staying up late reading a book. Her face lit up as she specified it was the one recommended by the book spirit, and Ikuru seemed relieved to hear it wasn't a serious problem. With the topic now open, she asked if he had read his book yet, noting that she was only halfway through hers. Ikuru deflected the question. As he removed his hoodie, he stated that the store would be opening the next day, and he was heading to bed. He gave her a gentle pat on the head before turning to leave. As he ascended the spiral staircase, he glanced back, cautioning her not to overdo it, and reminding her that the basement gets cold at night. From below, Hinami watched him go. Watching him depart, she was left alone with her thoughts. She realized that Ikuru had deliberately avoided the topic of the book, which made her wonder what kind of book he could have possibly received. She understood his evasion meant he didn't want her to pry further, acknowledging that the books from the spirit were very important. Though she was now more worried about him, she resolved that if he was suffering, she would simply act normal and smile, hoping that would be the best way to help. She squeezed her own book tightly. She offers a kind word to Ikuru, telling him that he can talk to her if he is suffering. Her sincerity seems to reach him, and he is struck by her kindness. Her thoughts drift to a conversation with God. She recalls feeling embarrassed, but he had reassured her, saying that even without seeing her face, her voice was clear and soothing. He encouraged her to have more confidence, reminding her that she is already very reliable. The memory brings a flush to her cheeks as she holds the new uniform for her store. She expresses her gratitude but feels flustered, admitting that while she tried her best to choose, she thinks the outfit is a bit too cute for her. In an instant, she is fully dressed in the frilly new uniform, and she is immediately mortified. God's voice echoes in her mind, teasingly admitting he knew it was cute and said so on purpose. She realizes he's just making fun of her, but he tells her there's no need to worry about it. His tone then shifts to one of sincerity. He leans close and tells her that he treasures her a great deal. Her heart pounds in her chest at his confession, and she struggles to calm herself, creating distance by reminding herself that he is a god and she is only human. Pushing aside her feelings, she focuses on the grand opening. With the store shining and fully stocked with potions, she makes her final preparations. With Maro perched on her head, she proudly declares that the store is ready. The day has finally come. As she stands ready, Ikuru observes her with concern, pointing out the dark circles under her eyes and correctly guessing that she didn't sleep after their conversation. Before she can reply, the bell on the door chimes. Cynthia and Kirudo enter, cheerfully announcing their visit. Hinami and Ikuru are surprised to see them, as Cynthia suggests they all huddle together. She quickly clarifies, explaining that they came because they wanted to be her very first customers. Touched, Hinami thanks them. When she asks about Alfredo, Cynthia explains he's busy subjugating demons, though she seems to think he isn't too disappointed to miss the opening. Beaming, Hinami formally introduces the creature on her head as Maro, and a small cat beside him is Happy. Her friends are delighted. She adds that Maro created a day-scented magic flower, confident that Alfredo will figure it out and visit soon. She watched as Kirudo became flustered, realizing he'd forgotten something in the excitement of Cynthia declaring her a little sister. Before he could speak, Cynthia, noting their similar height, pulled Hinami into a warm hug and formally introduced herself. Following the introduction, Cynthia presented a celebratory gift for the store's opening. The package was surprisingly heavy, causing Hinami to stumble as she took it. Ikuru quickly moved to support her, his steadying touch making her heart skip a beat as she thanked him. Inside the wrapping was a magnificent, large pink gem that sparkled with an inner light. Hinami and Maro gazed at it in awe as Cynthia explained that it was a newborn wellspring, a gem that aids in the germination of plants. Kiruto, astonished, asked if they had made the gem themselves. Cynthia proudly confirmed that the three of them, herself, her brother, and Kiruto, had crafted it together. She acknowledged that while handmade gems are less potent than natural ones, it was the perfect gift for an alchemist. With a warm smile, she once again congratulated Hinami on her store. Just then, the bell on the shop door chimed, announcing the arrival of more customers. Clutching the precious gem to her chest, Hinami beamed and gave her heartfelt thanks, promising to treasure their gift always. As the new patrons marveled at the wide variety of high-quality potions on display, Hinami began assisting them. Seeing the shop was now busy, Cynthia and Kiruto announced they would take their leave, but promised to visit again. Walking away from the bustling shop, Cynthia expressed her relief and happiness. She was glad they managed to give Hinami her gift and noted they had also purchased a present for her own brother. He agreed, adding that they should certainly visit again sometime. With that, they departed, leaving Hinami to her successful opening day. Later, as the day drew to a close, Hinami let out a sigh of relief behind the counter. She reviewed the day's business with Ikuru, remarking that they had served a total of 5 customers. Ikuru, ever supportive, told her he would start preparing dinner and that she should rest. As he left, Hinami slumped onto the counter, tired but content, reflecting that they had most likely achieved their first goal. Her work was interrupted by the chime of the shop's bell as a new customer, a woman in a hooded cloak, entered. The visitor asked if this was the young lady's store, explaining that she had been looking around and happened to find it. Hinami confirmed that they had just opened that day and invited her to browse. The woman smiled, remarking that it was quite a surprise, as Hinami formally welcomed her. As the hooded woman looked around, another young woman with dark hair stepped forward, her eyes wide with disbelief. She held up one of the potions from the shelf, expressing her shock that she could find one of Lettuce Real Summer's potions here. Hinami could only stare back, confused by the statement. Near the doorway, a man accompanying the women gazed at the shop's interior with a soft, distant expression. He thought to himself that the place truly brought back memories. Turning his head slightly, he spoke in a low voice to someone unseen, a faint smile on his lips. Doesn't it, Letty? The legend of Goddess Lettuce Real, the mother of the world, is a story known to all. She was known as a master of medicine, and she spent her days gently treating the wounded and sick, surrounded by those she healed. However, this peace was shattered in an instant by a stranger who stole a precious jewel from her. With the jewel gone, the goddess disappeared, leaving behind a curse that brought conflict to the land. The era of peace was over, and that is how the current world came to be. In the present day, Hinami was approached by a woman who recognized her potion. The woman introduced herself as Mari Kirishigu, explaining that her family has been part of the Church of Lettuce Real for generations. Hinami, taken aback, asked what she meant by the goddess's potion. Mari then inquired about Hinami's own knowledge of potions. Hinami, looking surprised, admitted that she was still studying. Mari apologized for her many questions, but said she would like to know more. She smiled and clarified her assumption, explaining that she had thought Hinami was taught by Lettuce Real herself. Hinami could only shake her head in silent denial. To illustrate her point, Mari revealed a small glass vial, declaring it a potion made by Lettuce Real. Hinami was stunned. It looked exactly like her own. Mari explained that the vial had been passed down by her ancestors and that it was no coincidence. While countless people say Lettuce Real is gone, those in the church have always believed she is still somewhere in the world. Her expression then shifted, becoming desperate. She pleaded with Hinami, asking where she had purchased those vials. She believed it could provide a clue to Lettuce Real's whereabouts. Faced with this intense plea, Hinami hesitated. She couldn't possibly reveal that the vials were obtained by exchanging points with a god. She began to ramble, claiming the vials were from a special, hard-to-reach place, and that the person who gave them to her doesn't like to involve themselves with strangers. She apologized, saying she couldn't arrange a meeting and didn't know where they were at the moment. Mari's face is a mask of strained composure, her eyes wide with the weight of the information she has just processed. She clenches her hands, quietly accepting the difficult truth. I see, she murmurs. Hinami watches her, understanding now the profound depth of Mari's desire to meet the goddess Lettuce Real. The depth of her desperation is rooted in a painful memory, a frail figure lying in a bed, perpetually waiting. Back in the present, Mari's expression shifts from sorrow to resolve. She apologizes to Hinami, explaining that she is happy just knowing the potion exists, even if she can't obtain it. Hinami, shrouded in her own gloom, can only apologize for not being able to help more. Despite her earlier words, Mari then asks if she might buy just a few, a request Hinami readily accepts. With the transaction complete, Hinami quietly hands over the small bag containing the precious vials. As Mari takes the potions, Hinami offers a quiet reassurance, stating her own belief that Lady Lettuce Real still exists somewhere. She immediately finds herself at a loss, realizing that simple, comforting words feel inadequate for the gravity of Mari's situation. Instead, she offers a sincere apology for having caused her to worry, followed by a simple, heartfelt thank you. Mari's tense expression softens into a faint, weary smile. She admits that it's strange, but being with Hinami feels calming, and that this potion has given her a sliver of hope. She voices her sincere wish that their encounter is not mere coincidence. Her words touch Hinami, who beams with genuine happiness. She confesses that she feels the same and is glad to have met Mari. With renewed determination, she adds that while she's still new to this, she hopes to one day become a recognized alchemist, just like Lettuce Reel. As the bell on the door rattles, signaling Mari's departure, a thought of regret crosses Hinami's mind, that she couldn't tell Mari she's also searching for Lettuce Reel. Hearing her unspoken sentiment, Mari smiles warmly and says she is certainly looking forward to that. After her tense encounter, Hinami stood holding the potion, lost in thought. Everything she had heard about the goddess suggested a being who loved plants and creatures, one who disliked harmful things like curses. As Cynthia and Ikuru approached, Cynthia asked if something had happened. Ikuru gently took the vial from her, his gaze fixed on it. He examined it closely, murmuring that while the shape of the vial might be different, the mark upon it was the same one he recognized. He decided there was no point in dwelling on it any longer, suggesting they deal with it after dinner. Cynthia readily agreed, adding that they should simply proceed at Hinami's pace. As they moved on, however, he paused. His thoughts drifted to the many cursed slaves who had been saved because of Lettuce Reel, and he wondered if the goddess was even aware of the world's current state. A profound sadness washed over him as he felt a strange presence, causing him to flinch. He dismissed the feeling as his imagination. Elsewhere, a lecture was underway, and it was not going quietly. A teacher slammed his hand on a desk, roaring that this world is protected by Lettuce Reel and that falling asleep is grounds for immediate expulsion. The teacher, a man of extreme enthusiasm, was conducting Hinami's first day in a beginner's course. He explained that the world consists of 3 continents, Neverton, Mushbarl, and Agdis, and that they were currently on Saridun. His lecture was cut short when he spotted a sleeping student next to Hinami, who jumped in surprise. She felt a wave of relief that it wasn't her. The student, Takuto, had fallen asleep almost as soon as the lecture began. He yawned, asking what the problem was. Hinami, exasperated, questioned how he could possibly nap when he didn't know anything about this world. He, however, directed his response not to Hinami, but to the furious teacher. Takuto calmly stated that if the teacher wanted to keep students awake, he should offer more profound knowledge. He then explained that on Saritun, the belief in Lettuce Reel is strong, which is precisely why cursed slaves face such intense prejudice there, a bias unique to the continent. He continued, explaining that the demons on Saritun are far weaker than on other continents, causing high-ranking adventurers to move elsewhere. This, he revealed, is why the Adventurers Guild headquarters is located on this supposedly peaceful continent. If powerful demons do appear, the guild simply dispatches adventurers to handle them. His impromptu lesson concluded just as the bell chimed. The teacher, seemingly impressed, dismissed the class for the morning. He addressed Takuto directly, stating that since he clearly understood so much, he would have no qualms about him sleeping in the future. His lecture concluded, the students began to break for lunch. Amid the chatter, Hinami turned to Takuto, apologizing for making him nervous, though she reasoned that everyone should probably know the information he had shared. As they sat down to eat, he took a bite of his meal, exclaiming how delicious the lunch was. His thoughts then turned to his companion, and he wondered aloud where Maru might be, noting he hadn't seen her in a while. Hinami recalled that Maruru had mentioned running errands in Saritan. She mused that Miruru must be doing them every day, wondering aloud what kind of complicated tasks they could be. Her thoughts then drifted to the morning's lesson about Takuto and Maruru's homeland, the continent of Agdis, where the inhabitants, mostly therianthropes and spirits, held little regard for humans. This deep-seated prejudice, she recalled, was rooted in the belief that humans had stolen the flower gem from Lady Lettuce Reel. While acknowledging that stealing is wrong, Hinami firmly believed not all humans were bad, solidifying her resolve to find Lettuce Reel soon and help dispel the curses. This resolve sparked another thought. Once she became capable, she could take care of herself. Then, an intrusive idea followed. Perhaps God would compliment her. The notion struck her as bizarre. Realizing she had been speaking to God a lot lately, she worried she was becoming too dependent and questioned why seeking his approval would even be one of her goals. She tried to push the thought aside and focus on her meal. As she ate, a loud slam shattered the cafeteria's calm. Takuto, who had been dozing off, was jolted awake as his pen went flying. Raku-sensei loomed over him, gripping his shoulder tightly. The teacher declared that someone like Takuto should be grateful he wasn't expelled on the spot. He acknowledged Takuto's intelligence, but pointedly stated that he lacked experience on the battlefield, causing the young elf to gulp in apprehension. His intense grip then softened into a gentle pat on Takuto's head. Raku-sensei advised him to be sure to listen to the stories of senior adventurers. With a quiet okay, Takuto accepted the counsel. The teacher then bid him farewell until the afternoon, and Hinami bowed respectfully as he departed. Once the teacher was gone, Hinami remarked that Raku-sensei seemed to know about Takuto's strength in combat. Takuto corrected her, explaining that he had told the teacher about his weaknesses himself. He added that while the teacher's attitude in class could be difficult, he believed him to be a sincere and great person. He chuckled softly, adding that Raku-sensei not only knew about his shortcomings, but was worried and had even offered him advice. In the distance, the teacher could be seen walking away from the tables. Seeing this, Hinami smiled warmly, remarking that such a relationship between a teacher and student was truly nice. With renewed determination in her eyes, she turned to Takuto and encouraged him, suggesting they both do their best in the afternoon for their teacher's sake. She stood by the window, gazing out at the quiet town under a starry sky. A sudden rustling in the trees below caught her attention, and her hand tightened on the window latch. The weight of the guild's investigation pressed on her mind, but after a moment of listening, she concluded it was nothing and let out a soft sigh. Unbeknownst to her, the source of the noise was Takuto, perched high in the branches of a nearby tree. With a spyglass pressed to his eye, he scanned the area, a bead of sweat on his temple. He was searching for something specific, the truth of the royal family. His intense focus created a palpable, threatening atmosphere. Though back in the room, Hinami and Cynthia were already fast asleep, oblivious to his vigil and his quiet snores. And then, Takuto Lefale knocks on a door, calling out for Maru. As Cynthia Muradaiti walks away in the background, he tells her not to worry, assuring her it will be over soon. He then wonders to himself what kind of errands Maruru could be running. As she departs, Cynthia clutches a document, her thoughts trailing off with a determined, I too, as she walks resolutely down a sunlit corridor. Meanwhile, Hinami enthusiastically attends a lecture about the occupations of adventurers. The teacher explains that an adventurer's main job is to fight demons during wars, acting as support. He begins to illustrate the 8 primary occupations: swordsmen, dragon mage users, and magicians, and the 5 support roles, which include healers, priests, and alchemists. His explanation prompts a question from one of the students, who asks what alchemists contribute as adventurers if simply bringing potions is sufficient. The teacher praises the question and clarifies that while alchemy is primarily for making potions, a skill anyone with medicinal knowledge can learn, not all adventurers are suited for it. A true aptitude for alchemy allows one to use blessings or attack buffs to enhance abilities, and in some cases, even create dangerous drugs. Hinami is taken aback by the revelation that she could create such things. This information gives Hinami pause. She realizes this must be why she has seen so few books on the subject. The teacher confirms her suspicion, stating that those with an aptitude for alchemy are almost non-existent. Beside her, Cynthia whispers, confirming that Hinami possesses this aptitude. As Hinami nods, Cynthia discreetly slides a note onto her desk. She reads the note, which contains an invitation. Do you want to go to the Southern Forest with me? Hinami looks up, her expression filled with concern. The Southern Forest is known to be home to demons, and she worries that it would be too dangerous for just the 2 of them. Her concern is well-founded, though she is unaware of Cynthia's true thoughts as the note is passed. Cynthia recalls the legend that alchemists with aptitude are blessed by the goddess, and she fully intends to borrow that power for her own purposes. Unaware of this hidden motive, Hinami considers the note, puzzled by the mention of a goddess's blessings. She doesn't believe she possesses such a thing, but admits it's the first she's heard of it being possible. She writes a reply, asking for a more detailed explanation later. In response to her question, Cynthia nods and adds to the note, asking if she can bring her escort, Ikuru, while explaining. She assures Hinami that he is someone who can keep a secret. A nearby cafe sign suggests a potential meeting place. Her proposal to visit the Southern Forest is met with surprise by Ikuru. Cynthia clarifies her intention. She wants to borrow Hinami's alchemist abilities. Takuto interjects, pointing out that there are other alchemists available, but Cynthia is resolute, stating that only Hinami, with her unique aptitude, will do. He immediately objects, declaring that there is no way he would allow her to bring someone as weak as Hinami to such a dangerous place. Cynthia looks away, flustered, realizing that Takuto must have his own reasons for such a strong reaction. His agitation growing, he demands to know what she means by the goddess's blessings, questioning if she actually believes in such a superstition. He insists that if anyone is to go, it must be Hinami, the one supposedly blessed. His outburst draws the attention of Ikuru, who calmly asks Takuto to state his true purpose. He warns the elf that there will be no room for negotiation if he evades the question, causing Takuto's composure to break. Pressed for an answer, Cynthia takes over, revealing the true reason for their errand in Suritan. They're searching for the royal fruit in the Southern Forest. She explains that information about it is being withheld, and though she requested the guilds to investigate, they found no leads, forcing her to take matters into her own hands. As a waitress delivers a parfait, Ikuru asks what she is looking for. Cynthia admits she isn't certain, but has heard that eating the fruit grants a special skill. She cautions Hinami not to share the information. Takuto then clarifies that what he knows is from his own investigation, as Miruru refuses to tell him anything. He then admits that Miruru doesn't want him involved in her search, since he is not skilled in combat. He believes it would be more efficient for her to search for the fruit alone. His confession hangs in the air. Cynthia turns her attention to Hinami, asking her directly what she wants to do. Hinami is startled by the sudden focus, while Ikuru watches her intently. She looks at Ikuru, then responds with quiet determination that she will, of course, follow them. Ikuru, however, states that he has no right to decide. If Hinami wishes to go, he tells Cynthia, then she should be allowed to. His deference settles the matter. Cynthia beams, declaring that they will help Takuto complete the errand and give Maruru a wonderful surprise. Takuto looks on, taken aback by her sudden, cheerful resolve. With the party officially formed, Takuto expresses his sincere gratitude, stating their help will be a huge asset. He outlines their next steps. They will depart after their beginner's lessons are complete, but first, they need to acquire a map of the forest. He adds that they should all register their guild cards for the mission. With the plan set, the group temporarily parts ways. As they walk, Hinami asks Ikuru about the goddess's blessings. He explains a rumor that these blessings are bestowed upon those with an aptitude for alchemy, granting them a higher chance of finding necessary materials. He admits, however, that he doesn't really believe in such superstitions. Despite his skepticism, Hinami clasps her hands together, delighted. She feels like a lucky girl, filled with happiness at the prospect. Their conversation concludes as they arrive back at a large, multi-story residence, with one of them announcing their return. Inside, they find a lively scene in the kitchen. Maro, with great enthusiasm, flips a pancake high into the air as Cynthia and Hinami watch. Hinami cheers, exclaiming how amazing Maro is. Ikuru enters the room to see Maro presenting the finished pancakes, wanting Hinami to be the first to try them. He explains that thanks to his instruction, Maro can now make them perfectly. His attention then shifts to a nearby container, and he notes with concern that the amount of salt seems to have drastically decreased. Regardless, the group sits down for a delicious meal. Ikuru decides that from now on, Maro will be in charge of grilling. The food is so good that Hinami feels her exhaustion melt away. When Ikuru asks about her lessons for the next day, she confirms they will be in a classroom, just like today. The conversation takes a more serious turn as Ikuru mentions hearing that her lessons are advancing quickly. He asks her to inform him if anyone invites her out again. With quiet intensity, he vows to protect her, stating that if he cannot, there is no point in him being her escort. Touched, Hinami looks at him and agrees. After the meal, the atmosphere lightens as Maro, having shifted into its fluffy demon form, begins to play with Happy. Hinami watches them, musing that the fluffier form probably makes it easier for them to play together. He watches them for a moment, thinking that if days like this continue, it will be nice. As the two creatures spin happily, Ikuru takes a spoonful of food, a feeling of genuine warmth and contentment spreading through him. The next day dawns under a cloudy sky, with crows cawing as they fly over the forest canopy. A lingering thought hangs in the air, expressing a hope that the day will be filled with happiness. On this new day, Hinami attends her lesson, her expression already laced with anxiety. The teacher, Raku-sensei, clears his throat and announces a change to the lesson's content he mentioned yesterday. To the astonishment of the assembled students, he declares they will now go to see the demons in the southern forest, eliciting a collective gasp of shock and excitement. He quickly elaborates to calm their nerves, assuring them that no fights will take place. He explains that the demons in the southern forest are mostly weak, so it won't be dangerous. Instead, he plans to teach them about the demons' characteristics and weaknesses while also showing them how to collect materials. His reassurances work on most of the students, who erupt in cheers, praising how reliable their teacher is. Their enthusiasm sweeps through the group, but Hinami remains deeply unsettled, a bead of sweat tracing a path down her temple. She thinks to herself that this is still a considerable threat. Nearby, Takuto tells Cynthia that the situation is unexpected, but since the demons are weak and their teacher is present, they should be fine. Hinami, however, is shaking, unable to share their optimism and silently urging Takuto to be careful. Cynthia agrees with Takuto, reasoning that they will be safe as long as they stick with their teacher. At that exact moment, a student shouts a warning about a slime appearing behind Raku-sensei, but with a single, swift slice, the teacher dispatches the creature without even looking, leaving the students shocked. Amidst the commotion, Hinami consults a map, feeling grateful that Ikuru had given it to her. Clutching the paper, she steels her resolve and prepares to move forward with the group. Her teacher, meanwhile, effortlessly dispatches a snarling, wolf-like demon, further proving their weakness. He then turns to the class with a sudden intensity, announcing a change of plans. They will now experience first-hand combat. He will stall the demons while the students kill them. In unison, the students agree with determination. From a safe distance, Hinami watches them, her stomach churning with nerves. She is impressed by her classmates' adventurous spirits, noting they aren't afraid of the demons. Acknowledging her role as a rearguard alchemist, she resolves to put all her energy into cheering for them. Her gaze then fixes upon a specific scene. Takuto, standing before a small, quivering slime. A worried whisper escapes her lips as she says his name. She watched her friends, a quiet resolve forming within her. She, too, could become stronger. As this thought crossed her mind, Takuto let out a fierce cry, his sword slicing cleanly through the slime monster. The creature dissolved into nothingness. Just then, A rustling sound came from the nearby bushes as something darted away, unseen. Ignoring the disturbance, Takuto celebrated his victory, cheering that his research was a success. Maruru praised him, telling him he did great. Buoyed by her words, he vowed to get stronger and stand beside her. Watching them, Hinami realized this was no time to relax. She needed to find ingredients for potions. From a distance, Cynthia Merudaiti calmly observed the scene. As the others were occupied, she slipped away into the woods. Her search was quickly rewarded when she found a strange-looking mushroom with a black cap and white spots. While she was preoccupied with her discovery, Takuto's voice echoed through the trees, calling out for Maruru to wait for him. He caught up to his friends, advising them that they had gone far enough, as there were too few monsters in this area. He noted a poisonous-looking plant that might be useful for medicine and wondered aloud if the rare royal fruit might be found deeper in the forest. As the students regrouped, Raku-sensei began a lecture. He explained that this part of the forest was suited to their level, with its slimes, wolves, and strength-enhancing plants. As he spoke, a quiet rustle came from the bushes where Hinami's map now lay abandoned near the mushrooms. Noticing her absence, the teacher called out, "Hinami?" In a sun-dappled forest, Takuto frantically calls out for Hinami, who has vanished without a trace. Panic begins to set in, but he forces himself to calm down, realizing the best thing he can do is think. He summons his status screen to assess his capabilities. The glowing screen confirms his identity. Takuto Millifuel, 15 years old, level 1. Every single one of his stats, HP, MP, attack, defense, agility, magic, and luck, is listed as 1. His title is bluntly stated as world's weakest. He grimaces, realizing the numbers are just as low as he remembered, and wonders why he didn't properly check Hinami's status before. His thoughts spiral into self-blame. He got too distracted searching for the royal fruit. He knew Hinami wasn't suited for combat, and feels he should have prevented her disappearance. The title, World's Weakest, echoes in his mind, a painful reminder of his inability to protect her. Frustrated with his spiraling thoughts, he slaps both of his cheeks hard to snap himself out of it. He forces himself to focus, reasoning that getting annoyed is pointless. He needs to think clearly about where Hinami was right before she disappeared. His attention is drawn to a rustling sound and a strange-looking mushroom nearby. He decides to start his search there, noting that the bushes look suspicious, considering she was right behind him moments ago. As he steps forward to investigate, the ground beneath his feet suddenly collapses. With a startled cry, he plummets into a dark, unseen hole. He lands with a painful thud. Sitting up and rubbing his head, he realizes he's fallen into a pitfall trap. He looks around at the cavernous space, wondering why such a thing would be here. Suddenly, a soft voice calls his name. Takuto's head snaps up, and his eyes widen as he sees Hinami, sitting on the ground a short distance away within the same cave. An overwhelming wave of relief washes over them both. With tears welling in her eyes, Hinami calls his name again, and he shouts hers in return, overjoyed to have found her. After their reunion, Hinami asks how he ended up there. Takuto explains he was distracted by a mushroom and fell. When he asks where they are, she admits she doesn't know. Takuto realizes they are in a cave system, the first he's ever heard of in the southern forest. A sense of dread replaces his relief as he admits he's scared, having no idea where the labyrinthine tunnels might lead. He speculates that the royal fruit they seek might lie beyond the labyrinth. Turning to Hinami, he suggests they press forward, but she seems surprised, reminding him that they still need to find a way out. He tells her to hold onto his cape to avoid getting separated and that they must go. Hinami agrees, her expression revealing her own desire to return home soon. As they venture deeper into the dark passage, he silently admits that he's counting on Hinami's luck. He reflects on the possibilities, finding the exit, the royal fruit, or a den of demons. The situation reminds him of the last time he was in a labyrinth, when he was nearly killed before Maruru saved him. His thoughts drift to the past, recalling how Maruru was always by his side, warning him against danger and tending to his injuries. Her voice calling his name echoes in his memory. The memory sharpens. A worried Maruru scolds him for being in a dangerous place, while a younger, more reckless Takuto proudly presents a rabbit-like creature he has just captured for food. The scene continues as the rabbit kicks him in the face. Maruru chides him for his recklessness while tending to his scraped cheek, remarking that his antics have made her an expert at first aid. He protests that she is too prudent, arguing that he must take risks if he ever hopes to become a real adventurer and overcome his weakness. The memory shifts to an older elven woman reminding Takuto that elves are naturally stronger and live longer than other races, a fact that applies to him as well. Maruru stands beside him, listening intently. Her voice then cuts through the memory, arguing that even so, they only live once. She speaks of her father, a great adventurer whose skill couldn't prevent his death. Clutching his sleeve, she pleads with him not to be so reckless. The recollection fades, returning him to the present. He thinks of Maruru's plea, just as Hinami suddenly stops him. She asks if he heard a voice, explaining that she heard someone asking to be found, though she can't pinpoint the source. Suddenly, a heavy clunking sound echoes as a stone door grinds open before them, revealing a new passage. Both are startled by the unexpected event. As he stares forward, Takuto's mind flashes to Maruru, remembering the troubled expression she always wore. He recalls Maruru's voice, apologizing for making him worry, but admitting that his concern for someone like her also brought him great happiness. The memory strengthens his resolve. She had never belittled him for his weakness. It was for her sake, he vowed, that he would become stronger and treasure her always. This desire to see her smile again pulls him back to consciousness. His eyes snap open to find himself in a sunlit grotto, with Hinami looking over him in relief. She explains that they fell into a hole and he was knocked out. He stares in confusion at the flowers surrounding them, and she admits she grew them with her skills. She elaborates, saying she had no potions and feared for his life when he wouldn't wake up. Seeing the rich soil, she used her skills to accelerate the growth of some herbs, hoping they would be enough to treat him. She expresses her gratitude that it worked. Overcome with emotion, tears of relief stream down her face as she smiles, simply glad that he is all right. He looks on, stunned, wondering what kind of genius possesses skills like hers. He tries to comfort her, asking if she really thought he was about to die. She quietly confirms that it was scary. He explains that elves have strong bodies and he's used to near-death situations, but she replies that she cannot laugh about that. His hand tightens on his cloak. Her expression becomes earnest as she apologizes to him. Then, looking him in the eye, she makes a simple, heartfelt plea. Please don't die, okay? The weight of her words settles upon them both, and they each turn away slightly, quietly wiping tears from their eyes. After a moment of shared vulnerability, they sit in the quiet of the grotto. As Hinami's sniffling subsides, Takuto takes a steadying breath. The silence is broken when she tugs on his cloak, startling him. She tells him she heard the voice again. He asks if it feels hostile, but she describes it as a kind voice. Realizing they're now utterly lost, she suggests they rely on it. He asks if she can follow it, and she replies with a confident yes. She followed the disembodied voice through a cavernous passage, confirming for Takuto that it was leading them in a specific direction. They soon emerged before a large, ornate double door. Out of breath, Takuto wondered why such a structure would be here, but Hinami was certain the voice was coming from beyond it. With no other path available, he gripped the handle, hoping luck was on their side. The doors creaked open to reveal a breathtaking sight. A vast, circular conservatory bathed in light from a glass-domed ceiling. Flowers grew in abundance along a stone path that led to the center of the room, where a single, ornate chest rested upon a pedestal. Stepping inside, Takuto stared in disbelief, questioning what this place could be. Hinami, however, was captivated by the beauty of the flowers everywhere. Her attention was quickly drawn to the pedestal in the distance, and she pointed, asking if it was a treasure chest. Takuto remained wary, thinking to himself that the entire place felt suspicious. Despite his caution, Hinami approached the chest, which was shaped like a small carriage. She thought it looked cute and probably safe. Takuto watched from a distance as she tried to lift the lid, but it wouldn't budge. Grunting with effort, she wondered how to open the strange mechanism. Seeing her struggle, he had an idea. He called out to Hinami, asking her to try the skill she had mentioned before. He pointed to the chest lock, observing that the keyhole was actually a seed, and suggested she try to make it grow. Hinami looked back at him, hesitating. She agreed, but with one condition. He must promise not to speak of her skill to anyone. She explained that since it was just him, she felt it would be all right to reveal it. Takuto, surprised but understanding, quickly gave his word. With his promise secured, she turned back to the chest and held her hands out over the seed. She began to chant a soft incantation, calling to the little, unknown flower and bidding it to grow far and wide with the light of the sun. As she spoke, a brilliant light shone from the lock. The skill was invoked, Angel's Voice Sanctuary. The light erupted into a massive, instantaneous bloom. Flowers burst forth from the chest, flooding the room in a cascade of petals and vines. Takuto cried out in astonishment at the sudden explosion of life. From within the blooming chaos, a serene woman adorned with flowers materialized, floating gently in the air. As Hinami and Takuto stared up in shock, the woman opened her eyes and spoke, her voice echoing the one they had followed. "You have finally found me." She floated gracefully amidst the blossoms, her expression warm and welcoming. With a gentle smile, she greeted them, her voice like rustling leaves. She then addressed Hinami directly, her words carrying a profound familiarity, calling her Rigsama's beloved little angel, Hinami. Within a grand building, news of Hinami's situation spreads. Her elven companions learn that she went into the forest and was unfortunately separated from her group during a fast-paced practical lesson. A search and rescue team is being planned, and it is suggested that Takuto should join them. Elsewhere, a young man with an earring dashes frantically through a crowd, panting for breath. He collides with a bystander, shouting an apology to watch where they're going as he continues his urgent sprint, his fist clenched. Meanwhile, inside a magnificent glass conservatory, a luminous woman descends from above, surrounded by flowers that seem to sing. Ikuru shouts Hinami's name in alarm as the girl stares up, stunned, asking the ethereal being who she is. The woman begins to sing a beautiful melody, and a shock of recognition passes through Hinami. She has heard this song before. As Ikuru panics, wondering what kind of sorcery this is, the woman invites a captivated Hinami to sing along with her. As their voices harmonize, a brilliant light spreads through the air, and both Hinami and the woman begin to float amidst sparkling particles. From the ground, Ikuru watches in amazement, remarking on the dazzling light and how beautifully Hinami is singing. The floating being then introduces herself, stating that she is the spirit of light, one of the spirits that controls Hinami's light rhapsody skill. The revelation sends a shockwave through Hinami and Ikuru. The spirit seems pleased by their stunned reaction, formally greeting them. This encounter is extraordinarily rare. The light spirit is one of the highest-ranking spirits under the deity Lettuce, and the chances of meeting such a being are considered virtually impossible. The spirit then questions Hinami, asking how she was able to summon her. When Hinami admits she doesn't know, the spirit explains that light rhapsody is meant to summon a spirit to create a protective shield. However, because Hinami had only chanted the name before, only a shield appeared. She clarifies that she is, in fact, a part of Hinami's skill. She reveals that light rhapsody is a skill bestowed upon Hinami by the god Reze for her protection. As a celestial sigil manifests behind her, the spirit instructs Hinami that if she is ever in trouble, she can summon her again simply by singing the song from earlier. The information settles in Hinami's mind. She understands now, and a wave of gratitude for the god washes over her, realizing she hadn't been able to thank him enough. The spirit cheerfully adds that they were doing great and should sing together again later. She listened as the spirit of light addressed her, her voice gentle. The spirit explained that she had heard from Reze-sama about the strict conditions under which Hinami had come to this world. The spirit then asked if she ever regretted her decision to come. Without hesitation, Hinami looked up and denied it, affirming that she truly liked this world. She thought of all the kindness that she had received from her new friends. Pleased with the answer, the spirit smiled and explained that she had only come to give her regards before departing. As she began to fade, she offered one last piece of advice. If Hinami ever needed help, she should summon her again. Left alone, Hinami sighed with relief, realizing how nerve-wracking the encounter had been and resolving to be more careful about singing so freely. Her moment of reflection was shattered when she found Takuro staring at her with an intense gaze, causing her to yelp in surprise. Beside him, Maro panicked, certain that he had overheard the entire exchange. He pointed directly at her, his expression serious, and insisted that she tell them everything when they returned, declaring it was a must. His attention then shifted to a nearby treasure box. He wondered aloud if it might contain a hint to the exit and, upon opening it, found a stuffed toy cat inside. Hinami immediately recognized the plush figure. Maro mused that the spirit must have used it for comfort, and Takuro agreed they should keep it, speculating that it could be a key item. As they spoke, Hinami's stomach growled loudly. She clutched the stuffed cat, her hunger now undeniable. She began to worry, wondering how much time had passed, and imagining how panicked Ikuru must be. Her stomach's growl caught Takuro's attention, and he asked if she had heard noise. Maro, however, pointed out that there seemed to be nothing in the area and no other paths, suggesting they press forward. As Hinami agreed, a rustling sound emerged from a nearby hedge. The strange rustling sound resolves into a distinct, rhythmic bobo noise. Takuro turns, confused by the sound, questioning if he was the source. His confusion instantly melts into terror. His face drains of color, eyes widening in sheer panic as the realization of the sound's origin dawns on him. He recognizes the heavy, stomping sounds and shouts a desperate warning to Hinami, telling her to run without stopping, no matter what happens. She looks back at him, bewildered. A window shatters inward as a massive wave of gelatinous slimes pours into the room. Takuro screams, identifying the monstrous creatures as they surge towards them. Dashing down a long corridor, Takuro shouts that they are hopelessly outnumbered and must find an exit immediately. Hinami, keeping pace, can hardly believe that such creatures could make those noises. Their path abruptly splits. One passage is a dead end, while two others branch off, forcing a panicked split-second decision. Trapped at the end of the corridor with the slimes closing in, Takuro wonders aloud if a switch lured them to this spot. Maro urgently reminds Hinami to summon her spirit guide. Realizing this is their only hope, Hinami calls out, and the spirit of light materializes before them, asking what the matter is. They quickly explain their predicament, pleading for help. The spirit of light calmly assesses the situation, noting that the slimes are the source of the strange noises. She agrees to help, then turns and unleashes a tremendous blast of power, shattering the solid stone wall with a deafening boom. The shattered wall crumbles away, revealing it was merely a facade. Beyond it lies a vast, beautiful garden. The spirit of light, unfazed, remarks that she didn't realize the wall was fake. As the others stare in awe at the spacious clearing, she explains that this is a precious, normally inaccessible place where the royal fruit grows. She confirms again that this is the location of the royal fruit. Takuro and Hinami exchange a look of stunned realization. They were searching for this very thing. Hinami cheers, exclaiming that they found it. The spirit of light observes them, noting that they are elves, but her expression turns serious as she adds that, unfortunately, there's a problem. She clarifies the nature of the problem. The royal fruit cannot be obtained. More precisely, the tree is incapable of bearing any fruit at all. The spirit explains that the fruit can only grow within the center of the magic circle, and only the divine being known as Lettuce Real Sama possess the power to make it grow. Hinami and Takuto listen, stunned by this revelation. In response to their shock, Takuto insists there must be another way. The spirit concedes that a path exists, but it is impossible, a taboo. She then materializes, offering Hinami a glowing feather and urging her to go home. The spirit gently places the feather in Hinami's hand, instructing her to remember its chant to return to her own home. Hinami can only stare, dismayed at the thought of returning empty-handed after coming so far. She then delivers the final, crushing blow. Lettuce Real Sama has already passed away. The news renders Hinami speechless. Takuto clenches his fist in frustration, unwilling to simply go back and wanting to investigate further. Even Happy seems to grasp the gravity of the situation, confirming that the divine being is gone. While he grapples with the dead end, Hinami's attention is drawn to the intricate magic circle on the ground. A thought strikes her as she examines its design. The circle uses a growth enhancer as its foundation. A spark of hope ignites within her. Perhaps her own growth-enhancing skills could have an effect. Resolved to try, she places her hand on the circle and invokes her power. Angel's Sanctuary. Silence follows. Takuto watches, but nothing happens. Hinami looks down, momentarily discouraged, but then steels her resolve. She decides to try one more time, focusing her thoughts solely on the present and Takuto's desperate wish to obtain the fruit. She places her hands on the circle again, pleading for it to grow. Suddenly, a spray of blood erupts from Takuto's mouth. He doubles over, coughing violently as a dark, thorny pattern spreads across his chest. Her eyes widen in absolute horror, blood spattering across her face. She can only stare, completely stunned by the sudden, violent turn of events. A sickening crack echoes as a black flower, growing from where Takuto stood, shatters. Below, the magic circle on the ground fractures, and Hinami's eyes widen in horror as she calls out his name. The sound of rustling leaves fills the silence. Hinami stands alone, her eyes wide with confusion, trying to comprehend what just happened. She recalls chanting Angel's Sanctuary within a magic circle, then seeing a black flower emerge from Takuto's chest, and she cannot understand why. Suddenly, Ikuru rushes towards her, his face a mask of panic and exertion. He demands to know why she is in such a place. Seeing him, Maro points him out to a distraught Hinami, who realizes she needs to use her skill. Maro, confused, calls out to Ikuru as he runs past. Before anyone can react further, a brilliant light erupts. A woman, adorned with flowers and ribbons, materializes from a cascade of petals, greeting them cheerfully. She expresses her happiness at being summoned so soon. Hinami, tears streaming down her face, and Ikuru can only stare in stunned silence. The ethereal woman turns her gaze towards a massive, dark-barked tree, her expression shifting to one of realization. Through choked sobs, Hinami explains that Takuto has become a tree. The woman, now understanding, identifies it as the tree that bears royal fruit. She turns back to Hinami, her eyes filled with a knowing intensity. She addresses her by name, questioning how she knew how to use a forbidden spell. Hinami trembles, the word forbidden echoing in her mind. The spirit then turns her attention to the others, introducing herself as a light spirit and confirming that Ikuru is Hinami's cursed slave. The light spirit gestures back to the great tree, confirming that it is indeed the royal tree which bears royal fruit, and that it is also Takuto. She then asks Hinami to confirm that she chanted Angel's Sanctuary within the magic circle, which Hinami affirms. The spirit grimly notes that this is quite unfortunate. She continues her explanation, revealing that the spell Angel's Sanctuary has the power to use a beating heart as a seed, which then sprouts into the royal tree. The spirit clarifies that not just anyone's heart can become a seed. Certain conditions must be fulfilled. As the word heart is spoken, a heavy thudding sound fills the air, and Hinami clutches her chest. Seeing Hinami's distress, Ikuru steps forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. He tells her to leave Takuto to him and to go home and rest. He looks at her with a serious, determined expression, promising to bring her home and to let her know if there is any news about Takuto. Hinami, her face streaked with tears and her eyes wide with shock and grief, can only stare back as he tells her it's time to go. She collapses under the weight of her grief, overwhelmed by the feeling that she couldn't do anything to help. As she falls, apologizing to Takuto, Ikuru rushes forward to catch her, calling out her name before the world fades to black. From that darkness, she awakens with a sudden gasp. The ceiling is familiar. It's a room. A drowsy voice calls out to her, and she sees Maro by her bedside, relieved. Hinami dazedly wonders if Ikuru was the one who carried her back. Her attention then shifts to a white cat plushie sitting on her bed. To her shock, it speaks, asking if she slept well. The plushie then confirms its identity with a cheerful pose. It's Takuto. He explains that it was quite a surprise for him as well. When he woke up, he'd become a plush doll. The light spirit, he clarifies, transferred his consciousness into the toy while treating him, as he was unable to move. He confirms her worst fear. His physical body has indeed turned into a royal tree. With a frustrated huff, he adds that moving in this new form is difficult. Hearing this, Hinami is consumed by guilt, believing it's her fault he's in this state. Takuto tries to reassure her, insisting that while it might take some time, he is certain he can return to normal. She recalls what she had read about the incident, realizing she is not to blame. For a living heart to become the seed of the royal tree, 3 conditions must be met. The person must be level 1, their physical body must be over 15 years old, and they must be favored by the deity, let us real. Only when all 3 conditions are fulfilled can the transformation occur. The realization brings a sliver of relief. She asks Takuto if he truly met all those conditions, and he confirms he did, though he's unsure about being favored by a deity. Seeing her continued gloom, he bounces on the bed, trying to cheer her up by declaring their errand a success since they obtained the royal fruit. At that moment, Ikuru enters the room. He approaches, noting that Hinami recovered faster than expected. Lifting the Takuto plushie, Ikuru reassures them that the errand was a success and that Takuto will return to his body soon. He then offers Hinami a mug of hot milk, but as she takes it, she can't shake the feeling that something isn't quite right. Sensing her unease, he gently pats her head, telling her it's all right now and expressing his relief that everyone is unscathed. Hinami agrees quietly, but her downcast eyes betray her lingering uncertainty. He then turns to the plushie, asking Takuto for a favor. He explains that Hinami can't deliver the royal fruit to Maruru in her current state, as Maruru is such a warrior she would faint. Takuto agrees and asks what to say. Ikuru instructs him to tell Maruru that Hinami won't be able to see her for a while, but that there is no need to worry. A message from the divine being reached Hinami, updating her on recent events. He confirmed that he had reported everything and expressed his relief that she was all right despite her hardships. The message noted that Raku and the deputy guild master had come to apologize, and that Ikuru had once again lectured her about being reckless. He concluded with a simple farewell, urging her to take care. His message continued with reassurances and requests. He assured Hinami that Takuto was in the good hands of a light spirit named Karari, who would inform them of any changes. He then asked Hinami to call him by his name next time and pleaded with her not to put herself in dangerous situations again, telling her to take it slow for a while. Meanwhile, in a quiet shop, a young woman named Saritun watched as the rain began to pour. She had just passed the royal fruit to Maruru, along with Takuto's message. Though Maruru wore a worried expression, Saritun held onto her belief in Takuto. As the rain fell, the bell on her door chimed. A young man in dark, ornate gear stood at the entrance, asking if he could take shelter from the downpour. With a smile, Saritun welcomed him. He offered a gentle smile in return. "Thanks. You saved me there," he said, his relief evident. The sound of the heavy rain filled the air as Saritun served him tea. He apologized for the imposition, but she waved it off, explaining that she had wanted some as well. As they sat, Saritun asked if he was an adventurer, which he confirmed. He took a sip from a cup, remarking that the mana potion was delicious and had warmed him after hunting in the forest. Saritun studied him, guessing he was in his 20s, but sensing a mysterious presence about him. He then flashed a brilliant, handsome smile that caught Saritun by surprise. "Right," he said. "As thanks for the tea, I'll give you this." He presented a small, wrapped bundle, revealing a prince fruit. Saritun's eyes widened in astonishment. She recognized its properties were almost identical to the legendary royal fruit and wondered if it was real. She stammered that it was too expensive and rare an item for her to accept. The adventurer calmly confirmed that it was indeed rare, but insisted she could have it. He then added cryptically that should another opportunity arise, he would give it to her then, leaving Saritun utterly bewildered. Her heart gave a sudden thump as the adventurer posed an unexpected question. Did she believe the goddess Lettuce Real was still alive? Saritun hesitated, recalling the common belief that Lettuce Real had already passed away. She admitted her fascination with the goddess stemmed from stories she had read, acknowledging that the truth was ultimately unknown. He then noticed the rain had ceased and announced his departure. Thanking her for the tea, he added that his question was merely based on intuition. As the shop's bell jingled, he turned to leave, a private thought crossing his mind about whether a certain item was now in the right hands. Before he could disappear completely, Saritun found her voice, stating firmly her own conviction. She believed Lettuce Real was indeed still alive. But as she turned to face him, she was met with an empty doorway. The man had vanished in an instant, leaving her stunned. Left alone in her shop, she wondered about the identity of her strange visitor and the meaning of his words. Elsewhere, in a tranquil, sun-dappled grove, a woman with an ethereal presence stood. She addressed a small bird perched on a stone pillar, asking if it knew the whereabouts of her flower gem. In a vast, sunlit field of white flowers, Hinami's eyes flutter open. She awakens with a start, her gaze wide with surprise and confusion as she takes in the unfamiliar, dreamlike surroundings. She sits up, trying to piece things together. She recalls feeling sleepy while reading in her room, but now she's in an endless field, barefoot. Concluding it must be a dream, she senses a presence and calls out, asking who is there. Her question is met by the sight of a figure standing before her. As she looks up, her eyes fix on a gentle, smiling mouth just above her, prompting her to ask again, more directly, who? The figure reveals herself to be a radiant woman in an ornate, flowing gown. With a kind smile, she introduces herself as Lettuce Real and then asks for Hinami's name in return. Hinami stares, utterly shocked, repeating the name Lettuce Real Sama in disbelief. Her mind whirls with confusion, questioning if she might be dead before dismissing the idea, insisting to herself that this must be a dream. Lettuce Real chuckles softly, remarking that it has been a very long time since she has spoken to anyone. Prompted by the earlier question, Hinami introduces herself as Kusunoki Hinami, which Lettuce Real warmly acknowledges. She's amazed that the legendary figure is real and speaking so casually. As Hinami watches her, Lettuce Real gazes into the distance, wondering aloud just how long it has been since she last spoke to another soul. Answering her own question, Lettuce Real states it has been about 500 years, a length of time that stuns Hinami. Lettuce Real's expression grows somber as she explains that she lost something extremely precious, and in her weakness and devastation, she shut herself away from the world. Hinami is left to wonder what she lost and what it means to be shut away. Hinami asks if Lettuce Real is still present in this world. Seeing the deity's gentle smile, Hinami becomes convinced that she is truly alive somewhere. Filled with sudden resolve, she declares her desire to meet Lettuce Real and asks urgently where she can be found. She feels herself falling as the dream world shatters. Above her, the goddess Lettuce Real murmurs that she should get to sleep soon, apologizing for not being of more help. As the ground crumbles beneath her feet, Hinami cries out in confusion, asking where she is now. As she plummets through the rumbling void, she reaches out, shouting for the goddess to wait, insisting she still has more to ask. Lettuce Real simply offers a gentle, sad smile and asks her to send her regards to the book's spirit before the vision dissolves completely. The rumbling fades as she awakens with a start in her own bed, her hand clenched tightly. Her gaze drifts across the quiet room, landing on the book resting on a nearby table, recalling the goddess's final words. Later, over breakfast, she recounts the experience to Ikuru. He listens while holding a spatula, skeptically asking if she's still half asleep to think she met the goddess in a dream. Hinami insists it felt far too vivid to be a mere dream, especially since the book spirit had chosen that specific book for her to read right before bed. The memory causes her to furrow her brow in thought. He notices her troubled expression and immediately stops his work. He asks if she is feeling tired, offering to close the shop for the day. She quickly reassures him that she is fine. Despite her words, she feels a strange tension. Ikuru seems to be standing much closer than usual. She considers pressing him for more information, but senses he wouldn't tell her anything even if she asked. She simply says his name. He responds by asking again if something has been bothering her. She starts to deny it, then sighs, admitting there is. Before she can explain, Ikuru suddenly begins to vent his own frustrations, panting as he complains that no matter how many herbs he picks, their stock never decreases due to her shortcut skill. Though their potion sales are doing well, the endless supply is clearly wearing on him. She listens to his odd complaint, silently observing that he's becoming more skilled at reprimanding her. He apologizes for his outburst, saying he'll have to ask about her troubles another time. He then begins to address her more formally. Hinami-sama, I. Before he can finish, the door bursts open and Maruru enters, holding Maro and Happy. She loudly wishes everyone a good morning. When Hinami asks where they were, Maruru cheerfully admits they couldn't wait for breakfast and ate sweet potatoes outside. Hinami gently pinches the elf's cheek, chiding her. Unfazed, Maruru's expression sharpens as she looks between the two of them and asks what they were just talking about. She steps forward, deciding to let the matter rest. Maruru states that she'll believe Hinami's explanation, simply because it came from her. Nearby, Ikuru remains silent, his expression still tense, a fact that Hinami quietly notes to herself. To break the lingering tension, Hinami brightly suggests they eat. She offers a treat to Maru, who eagerly accepts, munching on it happily and cheering for them to do their best. Ikuru watches them with a quiet, reserved expression. In the days that followed, Hinami's miniature garden steadily grew in popularity. Word spread of its delicious potions and exclusive aroma flower, drawing a consistent stream of customers. Even Ikuru is captivated, fawning over Happy and calling the cat adorable. Behind the counter, Hinami anticipates a lull in the crowd, pondering a moment's rest with some high-action black tea. Her thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of a distinguished visitor, Alfredo Meridite. He congratulates her on the shop's success, and she thanks him, noting that his business seems to be going well too. He apologizes for missing her grand opening, inquiring about the subjugation quest she undertook. Hinami reports its success, crediting her potions, though Alfredo insists she made them herself. His eyes land on a gift he had made for her, now on display, and she privately marvels at his affection for his sister before he remembers he has brought something for her as well. With a flourish, he reveals his gifts, an ornate chair, and a matching table. He explains his indecisiveness led him to get both, assuring her they are of excellent quality, crafted from sturdy magical wood. Hinami is taken aback by the extravagant present, internally fretting over its apparent expense. He gently pats her head, a gesture that flusters her further. He softly insists she accept the furniture, explaining he would be embarrassed otherwise. After she agrees, he changes the subject, stating his need to purchase some potions and offering to accompany her right away. His business concluded, Alfredo departs in spectacular fashion, soaring into the sky on the back of a dragon. As he flies away, he calls out a promise to bring Cynthia and Karuto on his next visit, leaving a stunned Hinami and Maruru waving from below. After the excitement subsides, a quiet calm settles over the shop. Hinami reflects on their current arrangement. Maro is practicing her culinary skills. Ikuru is tending the herb garden, and she is managing the storefront, which is now empty of customers. With time on her hands, she picks up the book recommended by the spirit, deciding to read until the next customer arrives. Alfredo's request to pass on his regards comes to mind, sparking a thought. Perhaps this book's spirit knows something about the goddess let us reel. She considers the set of 3 books she possesses. The first detailed the cultivation of herbs, and the second, on home fundamentals, seemed somewhat lacking in content, but potentially useful in the future. The third, however, is about the goddess let us reel and the flower gem. A realization strikes her. She only read halfway through it before let us reel appeared in her dream. The book, she now suspects, might hold the very clues she needs. She examines the book about the goddess, noticing that its final section seems to have been intentionally added, as if it were a separate volume. To her surprise, the content is a simple picture book. Tucked inside is a note from the book's spirit. He explains that this is a surprise, an art book he drew himself, included as a free bonus. He thanks her for her patronage, and Hinami is visibly touched by the mischievous yet kind gesture. Her curiosity piqued, she flips the page, wondering what kind of story a spirit would write. The pages reveal the spirit's origin story in simple drawings. He was born into a peaceful world and was once the goddess's diary. He became a spirit through her wish. Though they were happy together, he eventually set out on a journey of his own to become stronger and gain recognition. She pauses, realization dawning on her. The book spirit was once the goddess's diary and left her side to grow. Suddenly, she understands that the contents of this picture book are incredibly important. Her eyes fall upon a drawing of the goddess, and she gasps. The figure is an exact match for the woman who appeared in her dreams. Slamming her hands on the counter in excitement, Hinami exclaims that she knew it. She really did meet the goddess. The feeling is exhilarating. She is one step closer than she ever expected. Her mind races with possibilities, her heart pounding with anticipation. She hopes to meet the goddess soon, but what would she even ask? Questions flood her thoughts about this world, her own gem, the similarities in their potions, whether curses can be lifted, about the person precious to her, and even if the goddess knows anything about Regrees. Just then, the bell on her shop door rings, announcing the arrival of a customer. The sound draws her attention to the entrance, where a large, gelatinous form jiggles its way into the shop. It comes to a stop, revealing a friendly, smiling face. The creature, a large slime carrying a basket, offers a simple hello. It then makes its request, its voice gentle, asking to purchase one potion.